This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised. Good morning and welcome to Saturday dawn here at Djuma Private Game Reserve. We're on the western fringes of the Kruger National Park on Djuma Private Game Reserve. That is a herd of wildebeest. They are very satisfied to have made it through the night. So a relatively warm morning here. I'd say probably sitting at around 16 degrees Celsius, so really not very bad at all. My name is James Hendry. Hello. We have got the world premiere today on camera of Mr. Morgan Mulholland. Yes, let me say that wonderful name again. Sounds like something out of a storybook. Morgan Mulholland. And he will be filming me and hopefully a lot of great animals today. We'll go back to our wildebeest there, as I tell you to please talk to us using the hashtag WildEarth on Twitter, otherwise the chat streams on YouTube or Twitch. Also, if you are a kid under the age of 18 and you wish to email us, you can do that using the email address kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. It's a misty morning. There is some cloud rolling in from the southeast, so I'm not really sure what the weather's going to bring us today. It looks like a front might be moving in, but at the moment conditions are pretty pleasant. And as I said earlier, this herd of wildebeest is very satisfied to have made it through the night. There was the roaring of the Talamati pride to the north, the roaring of the Nkuhuma pride to the south, and hopefully we will be able to find one of those prides this morning. Otherwise, we'll check out the Hyena den and possibly also go off to the east to begin the inevitable search for Thandi the leopardess. News on the front here is that there will still only be one vehicle out from Djuma this morning. Lauren is in bed. It's not because of her need to be in bed. It's because poor old BK has got a head cold, so he's going to take another drive off. But we'll be joined, I'm pretty sure, by Phinda and Ngala and Pridelands and Tswalu as well. So I don't think there'll be a lack of content. You won't have to listen to me waffling at you for 3 hours. The wildebeest are now moving off, and somebody who will be able to have a better idea or give you a better idea of whether there's a front moving up from the southeast will be somebody who is southeast of us, and that is Phinda.
Good to andBeyond, and behind the camera we've got Marcel this morning, and we've come out to a beautiful rocky kind of outcrop in the southern parts of our reserve. Clive yesterday afternoon had those small lion cubs, 2 mothers, and we came out to see if they were still around. We haven't seen any sign of them, but we hanging just such a beautiful scene. And we were hoping to film a beautiful sunrise for you, everyone, but unfortunately the sun is busy being a system moving over right, and the massive clouds kind of coming out of the warm Indian Ocean. Apparently our signal is not so great here, everyone. We're gonna
A warm welcome to all our viewers. from all over the world. We're here at andBeyond in Ngala on a very misty but not as cold as the normal morning. So I'm going to be your guide today, Nikki, and then with me on the camera is Owen. So earlier on we decided, so as we carry on with our drive, we'll probably tell you a little bit more what we're hoping to do and what we're hoping to see during the morning. But what we also are hoping for is there's this nice beautiful open area on our right, and so we're slowly driving up here to see if there's any signs of possibly some of the predators that might have come into an open area to lie down. Also a chance of maybe finding some of the common animals, possibly impala and wildebeest. I can just imagine, like for wildebeest, especially in the evening, if there's lions around, they might move into an open area. It's nice and open, so there's very little cover for predators to try and sneak up on them, and that's why we'll just, I don't think I see too many animals on here, but however, there are quite a few birds right here in front of us, and I just want to take out my binoculars also and have a look. You'll see just like off to the middle of the screen, there's a little hornbill off to the right, like right there. It's the yellow-bill hornbill. You can see early part of the morning, it might be excuse me, it might be some insects around, or possibly just flicking over some bits of dung, because you can see there's quite a few wildebeest dung in the area. It's hard to spot with the camera because it's quite flat, or even old buffalo dung, and they might even flick that up to try and see if there's any insects underneath. You'll see with that hornbill, if we just give it a bit of time, we might just be able to see him catching something. Does look like there might be little insects. I'm not too sure. I can't see what it might be, but you can definitely see it's moving the bill, probably moving something out of the way, grabbing it and then flicking it into its mouth. Might also, could be some insects. I'm not too sure if there's anything else that he might. I mean, termites could also be another thing that he could, or they could potentially go for. But there's quite a few different birds. I mean, we're sitting here and just have a look. So from this beautiful sunrise that we have, if we start heading back to where that hornbill was, excuse me, it's so cold this morning, I think my voice also decided to have a bit of a line. So just see above the hornbill there's another bluish bird that's moving along. You'll also notice the colors, very, almost like a purpley, dark bluish color. Oh, hornbill chasing him. It's like, this is my area. That is one of the, so it's just such a amazing bird. It's called the Birchall starling, and we had a comment from Andrew saying it's such a beautiful morning to experience this, and it is, like, just to hear the different noises, seeing a bit of the mist, and just look at that sunrise. I can just imagine if we had to stay here for at least, let's say, 5 to 10 minutes, we might even see the sun peeking through that little slit in the clouds that you can see there above the horizon. And also often if you just sit down like this and you be quiet for a little while, you might even hear either leopards rasping in the distance. You might hear elephants breaking branches, chance of even lions roaring. It is early part of the morning when especially the predators are mostly going to be moving and still be quite active before they eventually settle in as it starts warming up. So it's a good opportunity just to sit down and listen. So just to add to what all the viewers are looking at, it is just such a, and also to all the comments, it is just such a beautiful morning. Now, Owen, if I can ask if we're going to head back to just to move out a little bit just so we can have a look at the sunrise, you'll actually notice that there's been a slight change of color now. And we have what looks like might even be a bit of a cold front coming in. Just look in the middle now, you'll notice it's getting, it actually looks like one of the rims of the clouds is being littered up by this very, almost like a dark orangey color. So right there, if you move in closer there, and you'll be able to see it quite clearly. Or not as clearly, I think the clouds are playing it a little bit. But I don't think it's going to be too long before we see the sun moving into that little patch there. So I think what we're going to do from here is, bearing in mind how beautiful this morning is, we're now going to try and see if we can find some of the beautiful animals just to... So I thought I might have heard something, but just to see what else we might find out there. But while we do that, let's send you across to James. Apparently he's driving in this beautiful mist that we're seeing now. And let's get an update from him.
I am driving through the mist, and I have found no tracks of any form of predatory animal that we might like to stop and look at, such as a lion. So we'll go towards Treehouse Waterhole, the most underperforming waterhole at Djuma, and see if today is perhaps its day. Hyena den's just in here, so we'll pop in there a little bit after this. We still haven't introduced you to Corky's cub. Well, we haven't met her either. It was just a video that somebody got, and the landowners saw it. It's one of those mornings that starts off relatively warm, but it does tend to warm up a great deal because of the cloud cover. I'd have to put my gloves on my little handies, which are becoming cold. There we are. They look very warm, don't they? These gloves were designed by somebody who has spent their life in South Africa. In other words, somebody who has never really been that cold, and so they are much more for decoration than they are for actual use. I have to ball my fists up in the middle of the glove in order to make them work. Right, we're arriving at the waterhole now. They're at great excitement. We're expecting to see a horde of lions neck deep in a zebra carcass. A clan of hyenas whooping and cackling around them in an attempt to put them off their breakfast. Jackals and vultures. Wild dogs observing from a termite mound close by. Leopard treed by the wild dogs, also observing from close by. And instead, what we've got is the blacksmith lapwing. That is the only thing that seems to be here reliably. There it is. Ah, yes, Treehouse Dam. Yeah, there we did well. We'll just sit and listen for a while, just for in case a lion calls. Wow, that's beautiful English. Just for in case and lion calls. English is in fact my first language. Thus far, and lion has not called. Nancy, say the lapwing is still practicing its cha-cha-cha. Nancy, I'll take your word for it. If that's what it looked like it was doing, I wouldn't recognize the cha-cha-cha, I'm afraid. I feel like I should, but I wouldn't. This has now reminded me of the time that I was in Greece. Ah, the past.
So we didn't even drive, I think 100 meters is when we saw this beautiful sunrise. So remember we said earlier the sun might just come up from that little slit, and of course with Owen's eye we decided to find like a bit of a dead tree just to show you and compare the sun and especially the clouds and the whole scene to everyone. It's just so beautiful. So what I'll try and do is I just want to be quiet now so you can listen to some of the sounds around us but also experience this beautiful moment. So we're going to stick here for just a little while longer, but while we do that, we're going to quickly send you across to Mike at Prrivate. Apparently, he has a lion there.
Welcome to Pride Lands, everyone, and we have found one of our namesake, a beautiful big male lion who's been patrolling his territory and scent marking. He's getting close to our boundary now. He's going to cross out soon, so I wanted to quickly show you before he did so. But look how beautiful he is. This is a gorgeous male, absolutely in his prime, with a nice big dark mane. He's watching us with those golden eyes. See how well camouflaged he is. This is a very cold morning, as you can see. Our camera's getting a little fogged up, but what a gorgeous, gorgeous lion. We won't be able to follow him, unfortunately. He's right on our boundary now, so he's going to be crossing out, but I'm so glad that you were all able to see him just for those few moments. And we'll try and see, maybe he'll cross along our boundary. Maybe we'll be able to stick with him a bit longer. But I think this is the brother of the lion that we found yesterday. Or maybe he looks a bit older than the lion we found yesterday on that carcass with the hyenas. But you can see, looks like he's got a bit of a belly on him. So this lion has probably had some food. Maybe he's even stolen that carcass from that other male that we saw. He's in his prime. You can see the muscles all over that body just rippling as he walks. Look at those shoulders. Look at the big head, the mane, everything about him is just power. Absolute power. This is an absolutely huge boy. I mean, this is a male lion in his prime. I'd say somewhere around 4 to 5 years old, maybe even a little bit older, but absolutely in his prime. It's the epitome of power out here in the bush. I mean, they say it's the king of the beasts, and there's absolutely no doubt about it. All right. What we're going to do is very shortly send you over to Phinda to have a look at some of the beautiful plants while we watch this male cross our boundary.
Welcome back, everyone. We've just moved a little bit around to the other side of this rocky mountain that we're on, and we found a mountain aloe, which is this beautiful flowering plant that's in front of us. I don't know if you can see, but just on the undersides of some of these branches, those flowers have been pulled apart and eaten. And while we've been sitting here, there have been quite a few different species of birds that have been coming to feed on the nectar of these flowers. And there's one, especially beautiful one, that has just landed in the tree behind this aloe. And I think that if we are patient, it might come out and start to feed. And that's the bird that's making that sound. Oh, there it is, there it is, there it is. On the top right of the bush. Ah, it just flown away. Oh, just out of luck there. But that bird that's making that sound is called a black-headed oriole. That's a very pretty bird, a yellow body and a black head. And they're one of the many species that feeds on these flowering aloes. I'm just going to open the bird book up so that I can show you a picture of it. There's also quite a few sunbirds that we can hear calling around us. The white-bellied sunbird, as well as a little bit earlier, a scarlet-chested sunbird. Also here, I don't know if you can hear in the background, there's a bird that's going. That's another bird species that we might expect to come and feed on the nectar of these aloes. It's called a spectacled weaver. But here is a picture of this beautiful black-headed oriole. So we got that very yellow body, the black head with the red beak. And have a look at that. There's a photograph of one. Busy, have a look at all the nectar on its face. It's obviously been feeding on the nectar of this aloe plant that it's been sitting on. Oh, I can hear that spectacled weaver. It's getting close. I think if we're just patient, we will eventually get rewarded with some birds coming down to actually feed on the nectar of this aloe. I'm pretty sure if we just sit here quietly, something's going to land here eventually. It looks too tasty for the birds to resist it for too long. Okay, so a couple of you are wondering why a spectacled weaver is called a spectacled weaver. So I'm going to show you a picture of it. You're asking if it looks like it's got spectacles on. It does. Funny enough. So here's a photograph of a spectacled weaver. Also very pretty yellow. And then see the male and the female. They look slightly similar, well, pretty similar. The male just with that slightly more goldenish face and then a blackish throat. But there is where the name comes from. They look like they're almost wearing like a Batman and Robin mask or something. Or spectacles. Just those black marks covering the eyes. Very attractive birds. And they make, just like most weavers do, they make an incredible nest. And out of the weavers, I think the spectacled weaver is probably my favorite nest. Here is, it's not the best picture, but this is a picture of the entrance to the nest. So what weaver birds will do is they'll use long grass and palm or strings from palm fronds. And they'll weave these incredibly elaborate nests for themselves, using, of course, only their bills and their feet. The spectacled weaver is my favorite because of the long entrance tunnel that it makes to its nest. And it's like superbly constructed so that only the spectacled weaver can fit in and out of the nest and nothing much bigger. And I've even seen a photograph of, because one of the birds that will sometimes parasitize a spectacled weaver nest is a kind of cuckoo called a Deidre cuckoo. And I've seen a photograph of a cuckoo that tried to get into the entrance tunnel of a spectacled weaver nest and got stuck. I'm just going to see if there's maybe a picture in here of the different nests. It doesn't appear that there is one though, unfortunately. There's quite a few flowering aloes up on this little rocky hillside, and I wonder if it's maybe the birds have just gone to the other plants for now, and maybe they'll come and join us here soon. Daniel, you're asking if this is the same aloe that we put on ourselves for sunburn. Daniel, I'm actually not 100% sure if it is this particular mountain aloe, although many of the leaves will have, most of the aloe species have got that kind of watery sap that comes out of the leaves if you were to break it open. But Daniel, I don't know that this is the exact species. I'll have to get back to you on that, Daniel. So just looking off behind us, there is a magnificent bank of mist that's busy rolling in from the southwest. So we're just going to turn around just to show you that. Have a look at that. James was talking earlier about the cold front, or that's busy moving through the country. Have a look at all this mist that's rolling over the mountains. And those mountains are what separate us from the open grassy plains that we've been spending so much time in over the last few weeks of us being filming with WildEarth. And I think that's where we're going to head a little bit later this morning. We're going to go in search of the lion pride that we know as the Biola pride. So stay tuned.
So we just saw this beautiful giraffe, like as we were making our way down to one of the waterholes to go and look out for the lions, or possibly see if there's any lions or leopard in the area. But if you notice, like right in the front of this, or on top of this giraffe's head, there's a little oxpecker, red-billed oxpecker that's probably looking for some ticks. And this giraffe, he's just like, no, get out of the way. Now with this giraffe, it does look like quite an oldish male. Now, if you look at the very tip of his horns, you'll notice how bald they are. And also like around his face, there's quite a few scars. So I can imagine he's been in quite a few fights as well. But something that really, or that always stands out with particularly giraffes for me, is like the lips of a giraffe, especially the upper lip that's slightly longer than in comparison to the bottom lip. And so often they use that almost like you would use your hand in order to maneuver branches, or you would maneuver leaves out of the way, or probably around thorns. So he'll use that almost as fingers, and he'll move some of the branches out of the way. He might even grab, if he doesn't use his tongue, he might even grab a branch with it, pull it a bit closer, and then use his tongue to then strip it off. But you'll even notice the little fine hairs at the very front of his lip. Now, giraffes are also one of, have a very special place in my heart, and I think the reason why, I would agree, he is an absolutely gorgeous boy. I think for me, giraffes, and I know a lot of the guests that do come and visit us, often comment about giraffes, where they say they're such elegant animals, and I can't agree more. I mean, if you look at the patterns on this one as well, if you start around the face and you go down, if you notice that the branches just off to the left, in comparison to the actual patterns on the body, almost simulates the branches, the way that the branches are weaved, intertwined together and weaved around. And you'll notice the further down you get, almost towards the legs, you'll notice that it eventually disappears into spots. We can't see it properly because there's quite a few trees in the way. But you can see early part of the morning, so those oxpeckers are definitely looking out for some breakfast. And all they're looking out for is basically the ticks, because they're filled with blood, and that's what they're after. Now sometimes, like a giraffe like this, imagine a big old bull, and often they fight, so sometimes there's quite a few scars around. And these oxpeckers would go and pick away at all the dead skin, especially around the wound, and by doing that, it actually keeps it clean. So it opens it up, which is sometimes a bit of frustration for animals, because there's constantly these oxpeckers that pick away, and it might be irritating them quite a bit. But eventually, because they keep it open and clean, and so that it can actually flush out everything that's inside, it helps to heal a lot better as well. So they do play a very big role within the environment. So you remember earlier we said how he would use that upper lip I don't know if everyone saw how he used that lips of his. Oh, and look at those beautiful eyelashes. Just imagine if you had to feed with your head into a tree, how easily it can prick out your eyes. By having those long eyelashes, you can actually maneuver your way around those branches without getting a stick or a thorn possibly in your eye. Butterfly, I would agree with you. Like with this giraffe, he has a very interesting pattern. I wonder if I'm just thinking now, just the direction that this giraffe is staring in, and also just looking at the area. So we are getting closer to the water, and I wonder if this giraffe might have seen another giraffe. Now, often, if you go into open areas or even dense areas and you see a giraffe staring like that, it's a good sign there might be a predator around. But I think in this case, it might be another giraffe. So I'm just trying to see if I can have a look. So while we are enjoying this giraffe and a couple of the oxpeckers, apparently Damon at andBeyond Phinda also found some interesting birds. Let's go and have a look.
Hey everyone, we have been kind of scouting around the hillside. We found a very, very pretty bird. Look at that beautiful black back and that rufusy brown chest. Oh, there it is. So we got a view of it. That's a bird called a mocking cliff chat, and I'll show it to you here in the bird book. So there it is up there. And for those of you that joined us last week, we showed you an African stone chat, which it looks pretty similar in terms of the black and the rufous and the white. So there you go, the male compared to the female. The male's got this beautiful white shoulder, and called a mocking cliff chat because of their amazing ability to imitate different bird calls. So it can often be quite confusing sitting up on these that they call home, that makes up their habitat, and hearing this jumbled warble of various kinds of bird calls kind of combined into one. So Shidulu fan and a few others, you're saying this is a new bird species for you. I'm super excited to hear. I did say the other day that I'm going to make it my mission to find as many new bird species as possible for you all over the coming months. But yeah, super pretty bird, and also super interesting. They often do this, I don't know if you can see that picture over there where it's rear end in the air. They'll often bob their tails up and down like that. And another bird that up on rocky outcrops, have a look at this picture over here. Again, another picture of a mocking cliff chat feeding on aloes. Look at the nectar all around her beak. And speaking of aloes, Daniel, to answer your question from earlier, you were asking if that aloe is the same aloe as what we use to put on ourselves for sunburn. So the aloe that we use for sunburn is called aloe vera. And I didn't realize that vera is just the species name of the aloe. So that's the actual name of the aloe that it comes from, is aloe vera. This one I said is a mountain aloe, which is aloe marlothii. So not quite the same species. Although that mountain aloe does have some medicinal uses, and because we are here in Maputo land, in an area where traditionally the Zulu people do, as of more recent years, call home, they'll actually use a decoction made from the roots to treat stomach worms. So it does have medicinal uses too. So we're currently still, like I said, just sitting here around these flowers, waiting for some sunbirds. You can hear sunbirds calling and hopefully they do that.
So sorry about, I heard the signal wasn't too great, but bear in mind it is an early part in the African bush, and of course there's a lot of mist, so we do apologize for that. However, on that note, so we are making our way towards one of the waterholes, but I thought it'd be a nice opportunity just to talk about also some of the smaller things as we go along. Now, I know like over the last little while we've done quite a few things with the kids, like remember we made a rocket stove, we made fire with 2 sticks, but there's another thing often that we can do with some of the trees. Now, for me, I do love trees, and especially the value that we can get from them. Now, this tree here is known as a silver cluster leaf. Now, what's very amazing about this particular tree is that the rope that you can make from this tree is extremely strong. Now, how you normally do that, So I just want to take a little piece off of it because I don't want to do it at the base of the tree, because the most important thing that, especially for some of the viewers that are watching, I'm actually going to just use a very small sample just to show this. Now, basically with the tree, I'll try and move a little bit closer as well, just to make it slightly easier. Now, with all trees, especially if you look at the stem or the structure of a tree, you'll notice that the outside bark is more of a protective layer, but just underneath the outside, there's this little layer known as the cambium layer. And so basically that's where all the water and the nutrients are moved up and down into the tree. And as soon as you strip all of that around the tree, or all the bark off the tree, then there's no way for it to do that. So all the sugars from photosynthesis that comes down, all the water can't go through that, and eventually the tree will die. Now, that's why I only want to take a little branch off of it. But so if you would peel this bark off this tree here, I just want to see if I can peel a bit of a bigger part of it. All right, let's just use this one. You'll notice, remember what we were talking about. So we were talking about the outer bark. So if you look here, you'll actually notice the two. So the outer bark is this one right over here, and the inner bark is the green one here. Now, if you want to make rope out of a tree, you need to separate these two. So I'll take the outer bark now, and I'll basically strip it off. So the easiest way to do it is, sometimes you might just use your nail or a knife and can just pull it off like this. And now from here on, what I'm going to do, so I'm going to put it right into my mouth, the one side, like this. And I'm actually going to twist it. Let me just twist it a little bit, just to show you what we're going to do. Okay. So as I'm twisting it, eventually I'll twist it on top of each other. Sorry, I know I'm mumbling there. I'll twist it on top of each other, and then basically as I'm twisting it like this, it will form quite a nice pattern here. I'll try and see if I can do it for the next segment. But this tree, just to show you how strong it is, I mean, I've unraveled it. So normally you can do it 3 or 4 times as you like, but I'll show you. So, I mean, this is a rifle that's right inside this bag here. And I mean, this rifle would probably be close to 6-7 kilograms. And so I'm taking this little bit of bark. So normally you can think, oh, it won't be able to pick this up. But look at how easily it's able to do that. So that's just show you how strong it is. Because, I mean, I can pull it like this. It's broken now. But if you had to take quite a few of them and you had to make a rope out of it, I reckon if you made a rope probably that thick, you'll be able to pull one of these Land Cruisers out of something. So imagine a 2.5-ton vehicle. If you had a rope that thick from this particular tree, you'll be able to do that. So it's very interesting. I just thought I wanted to share that with you as we carry on. So sometimes if you are in a survival situation, it is a nice tree to have in an area. So let's carry on. The Waterhole is not too far from where we are. So Dudufan, the tree here is called a silver cluster leaf. Now, there might be quite a few different variants if you put in silver cluster leaf. So the scientific name of it is called Terminalia sericea. So if you just type in that Terminalia sericea or silver cluster leaf, it should be able to give you that tree. Very, very nice tree. It's one of my favorites. So as I said, we're not too far away from the Waterhole, like early part of the morning. I can just imagine. So I'm not going to put my expectations too high, because normally when I do that, I get a little bit disappointed in myself. So I'll start off low, and whatever we can see then, of course, it adds up into, it's a big bonus. Now, imagine early part of the morning, there's a bit of mist. We're not far from this water. There's a chance that we might even find hippos, like as they come out of the water with an early sun on them, and they blow the water out of their nostrils like a... We might see that with the mist and the sun in the back. Now, that's what I'm hoping for. As I said, it's going to take me a minute to get to this Waterhole. It's a beautiful one. It's the one where I think when you were with Barney on Drive, you would have seen the lions at this Waterhole. Charlotte, that's a very good question. Like, to be honest, I'm not too sure which one would be the most important. I think everyone, or all the trees in general, are quite important because they all make up very unique habitat types. Now, to give you an idea why I say that, though, is because some areas you'll find trees with more of a stronger root. Right, let me rephrase this. So I think with the low-veld area, there's quite a variety. I mean, it all falls within the savanna biome, but there's a variety of different plant communities that you find within it. And I think every single plant community, all the trees that make up that community, is very special in its own way, because some bigger trees might be food for some of the bigger animals, but the smaller ones might be habitat, might be a place for a shelter for the younger or the smaller animals to be in. It might be shelter for some of the insects. It could be potentially food, also used as nesting material. So I would say there's no specific tree that I would say is the most important. I would just say all the trees together make up very unique plant communities that are very important for an ecosystem. Now, ecosystem is basically how the living and the non-living components, all the things in the environment, how they interact with one another. And on that note, we found those hippos. So I just want to stop like this. The water is basically like glass this morning. So it's a beautiful morning. You'll notice there's quite a bit of mist. Remember we talked about the mist, so the sun is slowly starting to rise, and then right in the middle there you might see the hippos. Now, as I said earlier on, if we give it some time, we might even find as they get out of the water, they go like and they blow the water out of their nostrils. Now, before we carry on, I just quickly want to wipe the lens, because I think with all the mist you might not be able to see quite clearly. So let's just see. Ah, there we go. Looks slightly better. Now, the thing is, why I guarantee and saying, oh, maybe like hippos are definitely going to be here, is because you can imagine with hippos, they are herbivores, so they need to eat grass. They eat plant material. They don't go and they won't eat anything else but plant material. And severe droughts, you might even find that they will nibble on sandbanks or maybe eat soil, and that's just to replenish some of the nutrients that they might be missing in their diet, especially if the grass started to lose some of their nutritional value. But so what will happen is these hippos would move out at night, and they can move anywhere from 5 to 10 kilometers, so let's say up to 5 miles at night. And eventually, early part of the morning is when they move back into the water. And that's why it's so dangerous, especially walking around the waterhole at night, because ending up between a hippo and the water is very, very dangerous. I'd probably say it's the animal that I have the most respect for in the African bush. But when they're in the water, that's when they feel the safest for themselves. You'll see, like, if they're out of the water and there's a slight disturbance, they run straight back into the water because they feel this is where they're safe. But the other thing is, this is also the time for them just to rest up. Now they've moved through the evening. They would have had to probably walk quite a bit of distance to get away from the water, because you can imagine with water there's a lot of animals around the water, and so they might feed and might consume a lot of the potentially delicious grass species, and then eventually these hippos have to wander further and further away, of course, the drier it gets. So whenever they get back, they're so tired. And that's why often if you see hippos in the water, it looks like they're lying with their heads on top of you, or they're resting their heads on top of each other's backs. So basically just sleeping and resting up for the day until later on this evening when the sun goes down, and that's when they move out again.
It's a little unsharp, I don't know why. Hi everyone, welcome back. We are sitting here with what was a red-billed buffalo weaver. I wanted to show you because we always talk about the buffalo weavers at the Leopard Dam, so I wanted to show you what they look like. But they've all just flown off. They're all sitting on the trees at the top and trying to sun themselves. I'm Mike Anderson, and behind the camera as always is Gerrit, and here you are at Pridelands. Welcome. We had a pretty exciting morning. We came to the area to find that male lion, and then driving along, we found his tracks, followed him around the dam, and then we found that male lion. But he was on a mission. He was just scent marking the whole time. If those of you who saw, he just crossed out of our boundaries. So what we're going to do now is head back to where that carcass was. It wasn't the same lion. It was a different lion, a much bigger, older lion. So we're going to go back to that carcass and see what's going on there. I've heard that the male that was on the carcass, the young male, the limpy lion, has moved off. But we'll see if there's anything else feeding around there. Maybe the jackals or something is still on the carcass, the leftovers. So that's what we're going to do. So while we do that, we're going to just drive around and see if there's any more tracks looks, there's another lioness that was seen in the area early today, but she's quite skittish. So hopefully we can get a view of her as well. But she's been quite difficult to follow. She seems quite nervous. She's young, maybe only around 3 or maybe even less than 3 years old. She seems to have been hanging out with that limpy male lion. So we'll see what we can do to find them. And yeah, just enjoy the morning. It's just a wonderful day. It's cold this morning, as you probably saw earlier with our camera fogging up. But the cold sometimes leads to warmth. Oh, there's a beautiful bird flying across. Another black and white. Emma, it is a very peaceful morning. As you can see, a lot of the birds are sitting up in the trees. So what we've got there is a magpie shrike. It's also black and white, just like the red-billed buffalo weavers. And because it's such a still, calm morning, the air is very cold. And sound travels very, very far on these cold mornings. So it's a really good morning for us to sit and listen to what animals might be calling. That male that we were following earlier actually did call a few times, but only once he was past where we could go. But it's still very nice to hear it on these cold mornings. As he was walking, we could see his breath coming out of his mouth. No, can't see my breath anymore. It's just past that point where it's just warm enough. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start driving and see what else we can find. So I'm going to send you over back to Nicky and see what he's got.
So we just wanted to have a look around the bank here. So we thought we saw some birds earlier on. So I think there's 2 right there. So I'm also grabbing my binoculars just to have a look. Oh, there's actually a few. Now, you'll notice that the one that's moving towards us, you'll see there's one close to the water's edge that has a bit of black on the front, a bit of white on the crown. And then on the side of the flanks, there's also a little bit of white. Now, that bird has a very interesting name. It's called the blacksmith lapwing. Now, initially, I thought to myself, like, why would they call it a blacksmith lapwing? And then it only occurred to me once I listened to the sound is when I actually realized why they called it. So the sound basically sounds like someone taking a hammer and hitting it on a piece of metal. It goes like ding, ka-dink, 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 ka-dink. And very beautiful. Like some of the morning sounds, if you do hear that, especially on... If I hear it, I'll let everyone know and we'll be quiet. However, sometimes in the morning, if you listen to some of the sounds, they are also one of the first birds to start calling, especially near the water. So then with that blacksmith lapwing, it was basically because of the call, so that the call sounds like someone, like a blacksmith, hitting a hammer on a piece of metal or an anvil. You just hear that dink, ka-dink, ka-dink, and that's where the name comes from. Now, just right of that, you'll notice there's quite a bit of elephant dung around, so that's what I'm also hoping to see. But I think it's still nice and cool this morning, and only later on as it starts warming up, we might find the elephants coming down to drink. But off to the right of where you see that elephant dung, there's quite a few doves near the water's edge. I'm just wanting to see if they're still there. Oh, I think they might have flown off. But they were, the old name for them were the Cape Turtle doves, and the new name is the ringneck dove. Also has quite an interesting call. It basically goes like, which says, work harder for every guide, work harder. But and 2 other birds that I've noticed now, just above where the hippos are. So we're going to try and see if we can get them. So if we focus on the hippos, there's quite a few what look like oxpeckers that just landed on those hippos. But just from where that hippo would be, just left of that, there's quite a big dead tree. And at the very top of the dead tree, you'll notice there's 2 shadow figures like sitting at the very, very top of this tree. Now, it is far. I mean, we are trying to really stretch our limit here to try and get everyone to see them. But based from here, it does look like it could potentially be a hooded vulture, the one at the top, and a white-backed vulture. Often vultures in the area is a good sign. But before we carry on, I just want to grab my my bird book just to show how do I know that those are the two that we are looking out, especially from a distance. Just bear with me here as I try and grab my bird book. Okay. So I'm just going to quickly find the page and then I'll ask everyone just to have a look here. So if we can have a look right here. Lydia, it is an awesome picture this morning. Like you can't describe this to people. I mean, even seeing it through the lens, like seeing it from here and hearing it and smelling that fresh early morning smells is absolutely amazing. But I just want to go back here. I'm hoping, like I can't really tilt the book anymore for the sun, but I'm going to just try and hold it like this so everyone can see. Now, if you look right over here, you'll notice that the vulture here has quite a sharp beak, smallish head, and a bit of brown. Now, I know from that angle it does look like it's quite far off and you can't really see it, but through the binoculars I could see a very thin beak, which tells me it could be the hooded vulture. Now, the hooded vultures are the ones, their beaks are specifically designed to get into the smaller bits in between the bones where the bigger vultures can't necessarily get to, so they're more of a picky eater in order to get to the smaller things. But if you now compare them, I mean, if you look right over here, so this is the white-backed vulture. And if you notice there, like right here on the back, you'll notice there's a bit of white right here, hence the name, the white back. But also, if you notice their bill here, it is a little bit bigger, more bulkier and a bigger vulture in comparison to the hooded. But often if you see those two together, it's a good sign they might be killed. And this is also where we saw those, or where Barney saw those two hyena carcasses the other day. So it's a good chance that these vultures are still in the area because of that. And also the lions were here. So we don't know. Like, I think what we're going to do from here is eventually, if we do move forward, we might refocus back on this area here. Indigo Girl, the vultures, and I think most of the vultures that we get in the area have quite beautiful feathers, and I think most of the birds actually. I'm also probably saying this because I love birds and I love doing a lot of birding, but they are very special, and especially seeing them up close. Now, sometimes in the summertime, in the heat of the day, they might go to these little water systems and they'll go for like a bathe, a bath, and then they'll go out and they'll stretch their wings out. And so sometimes if they were covered with quite a bit of blood or mud or whatever, that all washes off, so you can then actually see the beautiful colors of them. So I think what we're going to do from here is we'll slowly carry on with our drive, see if there's any other exciting animals that we could find, or possibly smaller things that we can see. But while we do that, let's send it to someone else that also loves focusing on the smaller things, Dylan at Tswalu Kalahari.
Good morning, everyone, from another sublime day at Tswalu Kalahari. It's going to be a great day. I just know it. I can feel it in my bones. It's great having you with us as always. Please ask questions, chat to us. Let's see if we can find out some stuff for you. If we don't know, we will go back and we will delve into books and we will look through research papers. We will phone people to get the answers that we need. So we're back at the meerkats again. This is now, remember, we worked out they were born, these pups, on the 18th of June. So we are nearing D-Day now. We're going to be getting these little guys very, very, very soon. And we're going to be right at some point. We can't be wrong every day. So there's no sign of any kind of activity around here during the course of the evening, any predator activity. There's lots of meerkat tracks up and down as usual. But nothing untoward, nothing that would cause us any cause for alarm or concern. There's been steenbuck up and down here as well. Porcupines have been in and about. Lots of rodent tracks, little mice that have been up and down. Yeah, so I think we are good I think we are good and safe, which is really, really important. There's been some springbuck in the vicinity. There was some gemsbuck around here earlier when we arrived. Butterflies asked, and thank you for being so concerned, how's my injury? I think I still have a piece of glass in my finger, but yes, I would have made a really bad guy at making stone tools historically. But I guess I would have practiced a little bit more than I did. But we're going to redo that at some point. But Jandra and I have got something super exciting in store this week, over the coming days. We'll see, maybe even tomorrow, but we're going to hold that one and see what happens.
So we've just arrived here where the lion had that carcass yesterday. Now, we didn't see the carcass. We were told that it was an impala. We couldn't see it from where we were. And now when we got here, it's all quiet. But we have found the remains of, or the evidence of what it was. See, if you look carefully, there is a pair of impala legs. I know it's pretty gruesome first thing in the morning. But for a lion or a jackal or a hyena, this is absolutely a delicacy, a little snack. So you can see that lion left absolutely nothing left, just these two legs. We can't see anything else of it. Remember, a lion is a very, very powerful animal, has strong jaws, and the hyenas were also here. So everything was crunched up. I wouldn't be surprised if by this evening these legs also get snapped up, and then will be absolutely nothing left. An impala is not a very, very big animal. But now all's quiet, all's serene in this area. We were just saying this would be a spectacular spot for a leopard or something to have its den, because just look at all these rocks. Look how wonderful it is. It makes a screen. It's all around us. It's almost like an amphitheater. So it would be a great place for a leopard to have its young one. Megan says the legs would make good toothpicks. Absolutely, Megan. For a lion with his big teeth, it would make wonderful toothpicks. So yeah, the lion has decided that he's had enough toothpicking and is headed off. We can't find that lion. There's another a vehicle that's in the area. It's going to be helping us to find this lion, but at the moment he's missing. But what I thought was quite interesting, you can see very clearly now, we don't often get to see it because of the long grass, is that little black mark on the back of that one impala leg. Can you see that? I'm sure that you can all see that on the right-hand side of your screen. That little black puff of fur. That is a very, very interesting and unique part of an impala. No other antelope that I know of has that particular black marking. That is a scent gland, and it's called a metatarsal gland. And we're not 100% sure what function that serves for an impala, but they all have it. We think one of the theories is that the metatarsal gland releases a scent when the impalas become alarmed, and they scatter in every direction, because that's what impalas do. Zebras run together, buffaloes run together, but impalas, they scatter in every direction when they get chased by a predator. And the theory is that maybe this metatarsal gland that you can see just above the hoof has a scent that only impalas can smell, and then they will find their way back to a central location where they all started when the attack happened, and then they can all move off together again. Because remember, an impala's safety is in its numbers. So you might find that this particular impala got separated from its herd during the night, was wandering around, and without the safety of all those eyes and ears looking, it probably got caught by, I don't know, a leopard or maybe that lion. I don't think the lion was the original hunter. I think it stole that carcass because it's a limpy male. You know, it's the one that he can't run very fast. So maybe he overpowered. Richard, you're right. It is a bush crime scene. We need to draw some white chalk marks around that and investigate what happened. It's very grassy, as you can see, around that carcass. So it's very, very difficult to see tracks and signs in this area, and it's all rocky. So unfortunately, I think we'll never really truly know what happened. Some crimes just never get solved. It'll forever be a mystery. We should name this part like Mystery Plateau, something like that. That would be an awesome name for this particular part of the reserve. But yeah, it is a mystery. So yeah, metatarsal gland, the mystery of the carcass, very interesting. So this morning has been, quite invigorating with the cold wind and then finding that lion. It's been amazing. So we're going to keep moving around this area and see what else we can find, and just enjoy the scene. I mean, it's not often we get to come out and it's so quiet and peaceful. As I said, it's been quite windy the last few days. Can you just imagine a leopard on those rocks, or even that male lion, if he just sat proudly? It's almost like Pride Rock from the Lion King, just sitting proudly on those rocks, catching some sun. And from up here, no doubt it could see the whole reserve. If I was a lion, I'd sit up there and survey my kingdom.
I'm having a very frustrating time. We found tracks of lions. They came up north into Djuma. They did not arrive in the central parts of Djuma, although that's where they were heading. I know, well, they didn't arrive at the dam cam, but they did arrive in this riverbed. And they continued north, and then I lost the tracks, and so I'm going to double back and see if I can't pick them up. There are also buffalo tracks all over here, so the Pride could easily be hunting buffalo somewhere, or may have hunted buffalo somewhere, and that would have changed the direction that they moved. Anyway, that is what we are doing here now. Excuse me. This looks like the whole of the Djuma Pride, or certainly a very large proportion thereof, youngsters and adults. Amy, I think this concept of a keystone species is probably fairly fluid, so it just depends on your opinion, and probably the numbers, it probably changes. So the keystone species, or the major keystone species in this area would be the elephant. They have a major effect on the ecosystem here. If you removed elephants from the system, the vegetation would change, which would obviously change the complement of other herbivores, which in turn would change the predators. So elephants would be the obvious one. I don't think, if you removed lions from the area, would there be a change? Yes. Would there be an explosion of say, buffalo and giraffe because there were no big predators to eat them? No, I don't think so. I think that the hyenas would just take over the role pretty much that the lions played. So I'm not sure that I would consider the lions a keystone species. Likewise, leopards, if they stopped eating duiker, something else would eat them. So nothing like the way you would consider an elephant a keystone species. But then if you looked at a bit smaller, if you looked at things like termites, if you removed Macrotermes natalensis, the big fungus-growing termite from here, or one of the Odontotermes species, I think that would make a massive difference to how the ecosystem functioned. So I would say those two things, termites and elephants. Hope that answers your question. What a very nice question. A good Saturday morning question. Right, let's go back to Mike, who's now got himself an actual animal.
It is an actual animal. We're just about to leave the crime scene, and now a hyena, an investigator, has arrived to probably snack on those toothpicks that we found a second ago, those impala legs. It's beautiful with the golden light framing it from behind. See how carefully it's moving up. It remembers that there was a male lion here, so it doesn't want to come in blindly rushing to get a snack. It wants to wait slowly and carefully, sniffing. Oh, it's coming very close. What a bold hyena. See that? One ear behind, one ear forward, sniffing the air, making sure that lion is definitely gone. Because remember, one crunch from a lion's powerful jaws can kill this hyena, so it has to be very, very wary. Oh yes, don't act like you just realized we were here. Still very much on edge. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to reverse back at all, because I don't want to frighten it. We're going to let it settle a little bit. It's probably going to come a bit closer to the carcass in a moment. See, it's investigating around the back of those rocks, just to try and see and make sure the lion is definitely gone. It's moved quite far from us now. I might try and just reverse us a little bit to see if we can get a slightly different view. Hyenas are such bold animals. They're always... Oh. Okay, hold on. Just going to swing. A bit bouncy. Indigo Girl, you have commented that the hyena had very beautiful coloration. And actually it is true. Most of the hyenas that I've seen here at Pridelands have had absolutely wonderful coloration. It's usually younger hyenas have these bold colors, not usually the older ones. The older ones usually get quite dull, so it might be that these hyenas are just a young clan, maybe. So you can see it now, how beautiful it is. It's got the dark muzzle, quite typical of the spotted hyena, and those rounded ears. Beautiful, beautiful coat, actually. This one is a fully grown hyena, so its markings are very clear, which is interesting. Usually by now they would be quite dark. I'm hoping that it'll actually find those legs. It's probably sniffing some of the blood, some of the stomach contents which might have been pulled out of the impala. But if it finds one of those bones, we might get a chance to hear it crunching some of those bones. So Indigo Girl, yes, very pretty. But hyenas are so misunderstood. Everyone always thinks that they're just these dark animals that sneak around at night, and a lot of people think they are actually quite ugly. I don't think so at all, especially the youngsters. Absolutely gorgeous little cute things. We were actually thinking of going to the hyena den a little bit later this morning, since these hyenas have been away from the den for a few days. Seems like our hyenas become camera shy. It's just hiding behind that thicket. That's where we originally thought there might have been a leopard cub hiding in there when we first got here, and all the hyenas were making noise, but we heard no other animal. Just see it moving back there. So we're going to just sit here and wait for this hyena to come and claim its snack.
WildEarth relies on support from viewers like you to carry on broadcasting our daily live shows. A small donation goes a long way in helping us on our mission to connect the world with nature. Please visit our support page to see how you can help and become part of the WildEarth family.
So I'm just doing a little bit of a wider scan around the area to see if we can see any other unusual tracks or signs of activity last night. And so far, so good. Like I said, there's just masses of rodent tracks around here, which is quite interesting. And just want to relate that to this nemesis of mine, the snake weasel or white-naped weasel, African weasel, whatever we want to call it, is on species like that are sorry, the meerkats aren't even out of bed yet. Some people say it's called schniegel. So on a species like that are very, very seldom seen by anyone, in fact, and even there's only a handful of museum specimens. That's how difficult these animals are to find. But their ranges seem to very, very closely overlap those of areas where there are good rodent populations. And that would make sense, as a species, as a brown hyena, as a species that is heavily dependent on rodent populations. From what we know about it, it doesn't make sense for it to occur in areas where there are low rodent densities. But where it gets really fascinating is that if you take the Kalahari system, there's just rodent tracks all over here, so we know there's masses. But these populations are very, very, very susceptible to what we call boom and bust. In other words, if you have good rainfall seasons, you get lots of grass around, lots of seeds, and little fruits on trees and that, suddenly these rodent populations have an ability to just explode. But conversely, if you have bad years, droughts, big fires, whatever it is, those populations can drop off as rapidly. So I'd be very, very interested to know, in terms of the ecology of these white-naped weasels, these schneagles, what is the impact of a falling rodent population? And why I'm asking that is that if you look at, I mean, that's a tiny little mammal. It's a small mammal. It's a rodent specialist. Now, if rodent populations drop off, what happens with those white-naped weasels, these snake weasels? And if their numbers drop or they get eradicated from an area, how do they recolonize, and how long will it take to recolonize an area? And these are actually questions that we know very, very little about. And I'm not talking just about snake weasels, but so often the ecology of species is absolutely fascinating. And it's not just about, and I think we've touched on it before, it's not just about species that occur in an area, but often it's more of a key question as to why something doesn't occur in an area. And I think, just out of interest, well, like one of my questions that I always like asking is when we say, well, you know, why do some mammals have more nipples than others? And even within the species. And someone was asking me about this question the other day. It's like, well, you know, what could the potential reasons be? And often it gets, another example gets thrown to justify something like that. But we don't have a real explanation why that would be the case. I'm just using this as an example now. But I want to know what is the reason why. Someone helped me out. We were talking about doves. Remember, I was asking about doves a couple of weeks ago, and why they suck water as opposed to other birds scooping water. And someone sent me a brilliant article, and it actually it crystallized it very well. It said, well, actually your Columbridae, you know, there are doves and pigeons. Doves and pigeons are the same thing. The youngsters actually suck the liquid out the crop as chicks. So that's where that sucking comes from. But it still doesn't give the evolutionary background to that. Why did that come about? Why did that behavior come about? So in other words, we say, well, an adult bird sucks water as opposed to scooping it because they have to do that as chicks to get the milk out the crop. But why do they do that as chicks? How did that come about? So, you know, I don't want to just say, well, some animals have, you know, different numbers of mammary glands, teats than others do, even within the same species. And it's the same as some people have got an extra finger. That's not the reason why. That's just using one example to try to defend another example. So when we look at species that occur in an area, that's like kind of the easy part. Well, springbok are here, you can like figure it out. But often the absence of something becomes a lot more tricky to try to explain in a habitat where they should occur. And I'm obviously excluding the dead obvious stuff like, well, something was hunted out or whatever. You know, those are the easy things. But in habitats that are intact and you get these elements that are missing, what is the reason for that? That's just my kind of like ramble thought process for the morning. One of many. And it says I'm asking and answering all the important questions. I don't know about that, but thank you. I've got a lot more questions than answers, that's for sure. And that's the one thing. If you in the outdoors, you're trying to learn about these kind of things, just ask, question every single thing. Why is that leaf green? Why is that thorn that shape? Why is it a thorn and not a spine? Or why is the sand red? Or why is there so much sand here and so little vegetation? Or why is there more vegetation over there than here? Why is that bush clump growing like that? And why are there those different species inside it? Why are the trees all this kind of uniform height? Why don't you get bigger trees here compared to the low veld? The questions are absolutely endless. And for me, that's the exciting thing. I know a tiny bit about a fairly wide range of things in the outdoors, but every single day that you come out here, you know, you're going to learn something every single day. There's no person that can say, oh, they know they've got the ecology of an area typed. It just doesn't happen. Or even of a single species. These meerkats, we can sit with them every single day and we will learn something new every day. You know, and species interactions are just innumerable. You can't put a limit on the diversity of life and the interactions that are taking place every single day on these things. And that, for me, is one of the exciting and most beautiful things about the outdoors.
So, that hyena that was investigating has obviously found the cause and decided that it wasn't worth his trouble, or its trouble, I don't know if it was a male or a female, and it headed off. So what we're doing is we're heading back to the road, and what I want to do is maybe head towards Ndlovu Dam, Elephant Dam, which is close to the eco-training camp, because the tracks of the male lion were heading into that area. And it's also not so far from the hyena den. I want to go in and see, after a few days away from the den, will the hyenas congregate there? Will there be some activity there? So that's my plan. But yeah, it's been interesting to watch the developments over the last couple of days. A lot of interactions, a lot of awesome stuff with the hyenas. You know, I haven't had a chance to see these hyenas that much. They're often in our camp at eco training, stealing into our kitchen and chewing on pots and pans and things. And so it was nice to see them chewing on something else for a while. Watch your heads there. But yeah, there's a real air of excitement, I think. There's just so much going on at the moment here at Pride Lands. We've had a few days where it was a little quiet on the cat and predator front. Lots of elephants, always elephants around at the dams. But the cats and predators were quiet. But now all of a sudden it's just everywhere. From that male that we saw crossing to all these hyenas and that other male. And the skittish lioness as well. Pradnav, are you asking if we have cheetahs? Yes, we are part of the Greater Kruger National Park. So there are cheetahs that occur in this area. I think the students have seen a cheetah before. I have not yet seen a cheetah, but they certainly would occur. They come down here every now and again. But as you can see from the environment, it's not very open in many areas. We have a few nice clearings, and especially the water is important. But cheetahs don't need to drink every day. They can get a lot of the water requirements from the food that they eat. So what they really want is nice open areas. And so we do have a few. They come down every now and again, especially in our southern parts of the reserve. But they don't spend a lot of time here. It's just too thick. There's too many hyenas. There's too many leopards. Lions are always in this area. So that's just too much larger predators for the cheetahs. Remember, cheetahs are not very muscular. They don't have big teeth and sharp claws. So they can't fight against the larger predators to dominate a specific area. So they'll tend to move wherever the action is least. But my fingers are crossed. I really hope that I get to see a cheetah soon somewhere here on Pride Lands. It's always spectacular to see them. And of course, wild dogs also have been seen recently on the property. We haven't seen them since then, but they also pass through every now and again, chasing the herds of impala that we have. So we're going to send you over to Damon at Phinda, where cheetahs might be on the menu.
Welcome back, everyone. We eventually left our aloes. It seemed that all the sunbirds and spectacled weavers and orioles were just playing games with us, calling but not quite committing to come down and feed on the aloes. Might because it's still quite chilly. They would rather just sunbathe for a little bit, warm up a bit before they start to feed. As you can hear behind me, there's a white-bellied sunbird up in the tree there. In the dead tree. Oh, there it flies. Oh no! Land. Oh, it's right here, everyone. I'm just going to move us forward ever so slightly, because they are so pretty and we've been trying so hard to get them on camera. Don't go too far, sunbird. Oh no. Sorry, everybody. The best laid plans of mice and men, as they say. Anyway, so as I said this morning, we're going to try and find that pride of lions that lives in the plains beyond the mountains here, and our tracking vehicle has managed to find tracks of the two dominant male lions of this region. So we're going to head in the direction of where they are, and hopefully we'll have a bit of luck there. What a beautiful morning though. Like I said, the mist was rolling in from the mountains out to the west of us. And just look at this scene in front of us here. The valley with all this mist racing down the little gorge. And that sunbird's still calling tantalizingly. We've heard, as I said earlier, we've been hearing white-bellied sunbirds, scarlet-chested sunbirds, and even purple-banded sunbirds this morning. And so I think as the morning goes, we're going to keep checking all the different flowering plants, the aloes and the Cape honeysuckles, and hopefully we'll be able to get some sunbirds on camera for all of you this morning. Okay, we're going to drop down now into this misty valley, and we're going to go give our tracking vehicle a hand in trying to find those male lions. Hopefully when you come back to us, we'll have them for you.
Damon is going to be looking for some lions. We're going to try and see if there's, because I know James and Damon are looking for lions this morning, so we're going to try and go and see if we can find some leopard. Now, apparently the Pride has crossed quite far from where we are now. We decided, you know what, let's rather use this morning. It's still early part of the morning. There's a good chance that leopard could be moving, especially near the river. So we'll give it a good opportunity and slowly carry on along this road right next to the river and see if there's any sign of leopard. Now, I do need to say, from all the cats, cheetah are my favorite, but what's right next to them is definitely a leopard. Like, elegant. What I do really enjoy is, of course, the different spot patterns, a little bit of white around the chin, on the belly, and of course those bright white whiskers and the bright white tail or tip at the end of the tail. Now, those are the things that we often use in order to look for leopards. So if you do drive through an area, you'll see the grass here is a very dull color at the moment because it is that time of the year. It is winter time, so if a leopard lies down on the tall grass, it's really hard to see, but sometimes you might just notice that little white at the end of the tail as it's moving above the grass. So that's a good indication to be looking out for. Of course, the other thing is possibly drag marks. A lot of hyenas in the area. Also, if there's anything possibly up in the tree. You can imagine now, there's a lot of hyenas in the area and a leopard has made a kill. They don't want the hyenas to steal it, so what they're going to do from here is move the kill all the way up into a tree and just leave it there until they finish feeding off of it and then eventually move on from there. But I think for now, we're going to start carrying on and see if there's any possibly signs of them. Now, we have some help this morning, so we have two trackers, Ernie and Richard, and they are currently working hard in another area of the river to try and see if they can find us some leopards. So we're going to be working hand on hand with them and trying to see if we can find them. Shadulafan, I don't think I ever have seen that though, no. I think the only ones that I've always seen were like beautiful long white whiskers. But I'd love to share like quite a amazing, it was amazing to me. So the very first time I saw a leopard in my life, I was still very, very small. And the leopard was hunting at that moment. And I always thought to myself, like, how can they move so that the antelope can't hear them? Or how do they move through such a dense area without being spotted? And that was the first day, or that day I actually realized how a leopard could almost use that whiskers of if it's a boy or girl, let's say him or her, where they measure a tree. So like basically as it's going through a thicket and it basically touches, I mean, this is just what I've noticed. I don't even know if I'm so far off the mark or not, but then I'll notice like if it realizes that the whiskers can go through here, it's almost like the whole body would be able to go through. But if it's too tight, it might make a lot of noise, and so then it will almost like change direction and head somewhere else, and try and approach from a different angle. And of course then just and try and loop around. And eventually, so that leopard, just to get back to the story, so eventually that leopard moved around, like tried to move through the thicket. It realized it was going to make too much noise. It looped around again, tried from a different angle, and it missed. But I still remember from a young child seeing this magnificent animal for the very first time and just almost observing its behavior. It was pretty special. Annette, I can't agree with you more. I think that's one of the very unique features of any cat is those whiskers. And just, I mean, even with leopard, I think one of the other things is even the patterns that you find around the whiskers is one of the ways that we can identify them. Especially if they are young. So every leopard has a unique spot pattern. So like our fingerprints, everyone is unique. And so based on that spot pattern here, as well as some of the patterns around the nose, as well as above the eyes. So those are some of the things you could potentially use in order to identify a leopard. So I can't agree more. It's very, very unique. So while we're going to continue and see if we can find this leopard, hopefully, I hope everyone can just keep your fingers crossed for us and hope that we can get this leopard this morning. But while we do that, let's send you across to a more open area in comparison to the dense area that we're going through now, to Tswalu Kalahari with Dylan.
Meerkats aren't out yet, but remember yesterday they also came out a little bit later. It was like 35 to 40 minutes later than they had the previous day. And Veronica, Meerkat habituator, she's reckoning it's probably got something to do with the presence of the pups. So in other words, maybe these pups are going to be coming out. So Veronica and I were saying today. Jeandre is saying, I think tomorrow. But let's see. Maybe we're completely wrong. Maybe in 3 days' time or 4 days' time. But yeah, this is getting good now. This is getting very good. Ooh, some people are even saying Monday. But it's Saturday today. Come on, it's Saturday. It's a good day. It's a good day for meerkat pups to come out. Why wouldn't you want to come out on a Saturday? Okay. Oh, we got one. Not the pup. An adult, but an adult is still great. Nothing wrong with an adult pup. Adult meerkat, I mean. So this is again pretty much the same time that they emerged yesterday. Maybe just fractionally earlier, a couple of minutes earlier. And for those of you who you're just wondering, well, if they only come out after 2 weeks, why did we spend so much time with these meerkats? We've touched on it briefly before that there are occasions when they will move the youngsters a lot earlier. That previous group, the ones that were nailed by the honey badger, they've actually been seen moving pups at 4 days after birth. So that's super early, but there were specific reasons around that. Don says, how cute are they when they wake up? I think was the... Sorry, what was the question? Ooh. Okay, Don has asked, and yes, they are cute when they wake up as well, but Don has asked, how do they know when to wake up? Have they got an alarm clock? No, I think it's just a case of, slept enough. Like, I wake up every morning like that, even if I don't set an alarm. So I'm guessing probably the same kind of thing. Actually, my hearing piece fell out there. That's why I didn't hear that question so well. Okay, so first one. So let's see what time and how much longer after this one the others will be popping out. Normally, once that first one's out, it's just a couple of minutes that the other ones start coming out as well. So I don't think there'll be a big wait here. But wow, if those pups come out today, So looking at the pattern on that meerkat's back, so I'm just walking around so I don't get my shade. Look at that pattern on its back. So camouflage is incredibly important on so many different levels out here. You may recall that beautiful little tortoise shell that we found yesterday. And camouflage top and bottom. And we mentioned the reason there's probably, if they get rolled over for whatever reason, especially during fighting, they still camouflage even if they're lying upside down. But look at this camouflage on this meerkat's back. Now, when they're moving through, okay, the second one's out. When they're moving through this kind of vegetation, although their eyesight is incredibly good, what they're up against are other things with equally good eyesight, and maybe even better in some cases. I mean, birds of prey, that's what their entire lives revolve around, is spotting small mammals. Well, certainly the ones that are going for these little guys, like martial eagles and that. And so this camouflage is incredibly important for them. I'm quite interested in the fact that they're facing that direction first. Because normally they'll get up and they'll start facing the sun pretty much straight away. But the one which is closest to my side, in other words, one furthest from the camera, the one that's just gone down, that's just been facing due west. Okay, now it's turned around. Because you always wonder, or you should always look at animal behavior, not just accept it. Remember the kudu yesterday, kudu barking yesterday, that alerted us to the presence of those two male cheetah. And the same thing like that, even though the meerkats might sit here, they may not be giving an alarm call, but if they're facing in one direction, that could also be an indication that they're aware of something from that quarter. So they look adorable when they sit like that with their little paws facing down. Yeah, let's see how long it takes for the others to pop up. We'll just stick here.
Now, I'm afraid I have a bit of a mystery on my hands because I don't know where these lions have gone. They came out of, or they went into this block where we had their tracks in the riverbed, and they don't come out of the block as far as I can tell. There are buffalo tracks all over the place. I drove through parts of the block but came up with nothing. So what I thought we'd do is have a little poke around in some dung, because buffalo dung is, it's imminently pokerable around about in. Just to see if there aren't any winter insects, and also to see if we don't perhaps hear the sounds of lions feeding. Because the fact that there are no tracks here and there was no calling early this morning says maybe they're on a kill. I also want to check how fresh this is. This is not fresh. This is from probably a day or two ago. Now, it's so interesting, in winter, there's just nothing going on in here. There's not one termite, there's not one beetle, not a fly. Just lovely, wet, mushy buffalo dung. Some kudu walked in there. There's been no alarm calling from them. One single impala shouting, but that's a long way off. Yes, there are impala shouting there. Okay, let's have a quick look at the dwarf mongoose that are on that termite mound there. I've just spotted them, and then we'll go and we'll just do that as we turn around, and then we must go and follow up on those impala. There they are. They'll come out again. They're on the top of that termite mound. There we are. Let me just listen again carefully. the impala anymore. Hyena's calling. You hear the hyenas going. I reckon she knows this dwarf mongoose. She says it's the one with the funny right eye. Really? He does. You're absolutely right, Emma. I don't think he's even got an eye there. Just yawned. They are so cute. And like I've said to you before, I'm pretty sure that if we spent enough time on foot around them, they'd tame in the same way that those meerkats have. Yes, Critter Freak, you're agreeing that they are very cute. Yeah, we're going to move. I can hear the impala alarming. They are quite far though. Lexi, they will eat snakes. Yeah, they don't eat. They don't eat big snakes because they are quite small. Well, they're very small, but they will eat snakes. I wouldn't say it's their predominant diet. You know, reptiles, scorpions, eggs, insects, that sort of thing. But yes, small snakes, absolutely, they will take. And by reptiles, obviously, I know snakes are reptiles, but there'd be smaller lizards and that sort of stuff. But the banded mongoose and the slender mongoose are big snake killers, for sure. They will definitely devour snakes. I watched a video of a slender mongoose killing a black mamba the other day. The nonchalant way that he went around it is just absolutely astounding. Fearless, absolutely fearless, and so much faster than the mamba and so confident. Quite amazing to watch. Right, I think the impala over there, I'm going to drive off there in a great speed, at a great speed.
So a third one popped out and it's just gone back down, but they're going to be out soon. And that burrow where they're standing, the burrow immediately in front of them, in other words, closest to Gendro there, there's been a huge amount of digging activity on that burrow. You know, I can see it from this angle over here, looking into it. But you know, so I think there's definitely something going on here with regards to the pups, which will be really good. Okay, what are you looking at? So it's fun to try to see what they're seeing. And obviously their field of view is quite a bit narrower than ours in terms of, you know, just, okay, there's the third one. In terms of their height, yeah, they're small little guys, like 30 centimeters, maybe a little bit more than 30 centimeters. Ray's asked a really interesting question. He's asked, do meerkats feel the vibrations of us walking around the burrows? that's a good question, and I don't have an answer for that. They may well, in terms of, we're walking very softly. The sand really dampens vibrations, but those of you who have felt earthquakes, earth tremors, rather, let's not say earth tremor, even very, very soft ones. If any of you ever have stayed or lived close to any big mining areas, when there's explosions, when they're doing blasting, even if you are very, very far away, you can actually feel that very, very soft tremor. So it's not impossible that I'm not equating myself to a tremor or an earthquake at all, but it's certainly not impossible that they could. And when we look at the sengis that we were talking about, remember I mentioned there's one down in Phinda, that four-toed elephant shrew with those beautiful bristles on its tail. One of the theories that has been put forward for the purpose of those bristles is that they can actually sense vibrations in the environment. But that theory seems to not hold that much water. It's got more to do with scent trails and that kind of stuff. But yeah, so they could well feel us walking around over here. I don't think they would, but I wouldn't be able to say that for sure. But I wouldn't be at all surprised if they could, if someone said, well, actually they can. It wouldn't be like, oh, wow, geez, I didn't think that would happen.
So we managed to get to another open area as we were moving along the river to look out for leopard, and of course spotted my favorite animal, the zebra. Now, it looks like there's two there. There's a youngster just behind this one, so I'm sure it's probably the mom and one of the older foals that's just behind her at the moment. So let's give it some time and see if the youngster comes out. But there's quite a few of them, and you'll even notice when you look at this moment, it almost looks like she's shaking. Look at that right shoulder of hers. If you notice how it's like twitching up and down. Now often if flies bother zebras, of course they'll flick their tail, and sometimes they might even stand with their heads close to one another's tails in order so as soon as they move the tail, it flicks the flies away from their eyes. But another way to do it is also if they do flick their muscles in order to try and get rid of the flies. So there's quite a few of them. I mean, in this area here, you'll notice it's quite nice and open, but there's few little patches that are quite dense, and then you have a few others that are just trailing at the back. Look at how well camouflaged that one is in the shade in the middle of all those trees. But I can also imagine why they might be in there is because a lot of the animals won't necessarily be able to get underneath. So let's say like elephants and that, they will normally push over a tree, but if they can, they'll rather move to some areas closer to the river, whereas with the zebra now, because nothing has really been feeding underneath that tree, they can go underneath and probably get some of the grass. They might be a little bit more delicious in comparison to those in the open area, where all the other animals will be able to have a feast. So they'll probably eat all the good ones, so the grass that are left is what they'll have to then eat from there. But look at the little one, you can see it just pulled out a long string of grass there. Striped horse, I've never seen an albino zebra before. I don't even know if they do occur. I'd love to know from the viewers if anyone knows about it. Has it ever been recorded? I'm sure there is a possibility. I mean, I can imagine if there's a lack of pigment that you could find that, but I don't think I've ever seen one in the wild. The only ones I have seen though, early on, we actually drove past a Franklin that was leucistic, so it almost looked like an albino, but very light in color, but we couldn't manage to get it on camera. But albino elephant I have seen as well, but not a zebra. Just look at that little one. Look at how the ears are just pricked forward.
probably very curious. There's some birds moving in the grass, and also the other one. So he's probably just trying to investigate what it is before he lowered his head again. But if you notice, I mean, compare the two, you'll notice the mum. Look at how smooth her skin is. It almost looks like she has very short hair. Even this time of the year, where you find other animals where they almost grow like a bit of a winter coat. But if you look at that youngster, you'll notice that it's quite fluffy. Now, normally as they grow, they start losing that fluff, and eventually it starts getting more or smoother or shorter, as the one that you're looking at with the mum. But I think as we're enjoying these beautiful colors, apparently Mike at Prrivate also found an animal with some beautiful colors. Let's head across to him.
All right, so we had an awesome bird called a purple roller, which is actually sitting behind us on a tree. We might be able to get it again, but just before we go to it, I just wanted to show you what bird it was. Sorry, I know you were. So this is what we had in the tree. I know we always see lilac-breasted rollers, but now we had a purple roller, which is a rare bird. I mean, not rare, but it's the least common roller in the region. It's one of our residents, so that's really, really awesome to see it, and it's quite large compared to the other rollers. But like the rollers, they do eat insects, and they nest in hollows on trees. And you can see this one's not quite as colorful as the lilac-breasted roller, which is just over here. But it is also a very, very spectacular bird. So now, what's interesting is that as I was watching it now, the lilac-breasted roller actually flew in and chased the purple roller off. There's a lot of competition between these two birds. The purple rollers are much less common, but a bit larger. But they seem to be slightly less aggressive when it comes to fighting over their territories. So that's a very interesting bird, and the purple roller. Have you ever seen a purple roller before? It might be a first for a lot of you. I know I don't see it very often. Many of our students struggle with birds. You know, sometimes they all look the same to people who don't necessarily spend a lot of time watching birds. But the purple roller is different. Oh, that's awesome! So a lot of you have not seen this bird before. So that's two birds that I've shown you. That's true. I haven't shown this one yet. I saw it, but we'll show it to you at some point. But I'm hoping that we can get another view of it. It seems to be living around this dam, so that's awesome. So we'll try and see if we can get a view. There's lots of different rollers. My favorite of all the rollers is the broad-billed roller, but we won't find those yet at this time of year. Okay, wonderful. So what we're actually doing is heading on our way towards the hyena den, just because, as I said before, it might be interesting if there's a lot of activity there. We've had a lot of youngsters there recently, and they're very, very curious. I love how close they come to the cars whenever we go there. It's important to keep going there regularly to keep the habituation process up with these hyenas. With all of our animals that we have, the lions, the leopards, this reserve Pride Lands hasn't been operating for all that long. So it's really important that we keep up the habituation process of all these animals, going to view them regularly, using our vehicles, being sensitive, but spending time with them so that they learn that we are not a threat to them and we're no danger to them. Remember, we don't want animals to be frightened by us. So the more we can spend time with them in a relaxed atmosphere. Like that male lion we saw yesterday, he was nervous because of the hyenas that were around. But when we sat there quietly, he was quite fine with us being around him. And the more we do that, there's something that's just cranking some branches off to the left of us. I suspect that there might be an elephant nearby. Right, we are going to be sending you to some meerkats being habituated, which is pretty awesome.
Still only 3 up. So I always take time, I'm looking at a book, I always take time to check out tracks and stuff. It's always good to carry books with you. They are totally worthwhile. I guess depends which books it is. And we're not going to pan to them because they're far, far, far away, but we got some springbuck in the far distance behind Gendre, that direction. There were gemsbuck way up this way, so I'm just trying to give you an impression of what's been going on around us over here. Oh, and then there was a steenbuck when we arrived. It was still almost dark, and a bat-eared fox in the area. and there were reports of those 2 male cheetah that we saw yesterday east of us and slowly moving westerly direction. So we'll keep our eyes peeled. They may even rock up here. So there's something really interesting that we've been chatting about, okay? Jaffa has asked, how long did it take to habituate these meerkats? So these meerkats, this particular group has probably been going for 6 years, 7 years. We've got another group here called the horses. That was the one that the badger hit that burrow. They've probably been going for 10 years now. So there's a long line of continual habituation, and it has its ups and downs. Sometimes these groups split up, and okay, there's another. Look at that, all of them now. So -1, we're missing 1. There should be 6. And sometimes you get these like super wild meerkats that'll join up with the group, and then that kind of sets the habituation back again. So it's just the fact of being present with him every day is very, very, very important. But it can take years. It doesn't have to take years. I mean, it could be, if you want to go, if your objective is just to habituate an animal to get a photograph, and it's a once-off, you could probably divest a couple of weeks of hard work into it, and you'd probably come right. But, this for us is not about a short-term thing. This is about a long-term. And then you also start like building up the life histories of these different colonies. And that's really where the goal data is, to be able to see what's happened with a group, any mortalities, any pups born, anything like that. That's the really interesting stuff. We're having a quick chat. We've been noticing, and again, you're not going to actually see it from here because it's just ridiculously difficult to actually get shots of. But just after we arrived here, the doves started coming down to the Waterhole, like I say, which is about 1.5 km, 2 km distant from here. But they were coming in very, very high, flying over nice and high, probably 50, 60 meters. But as the sun started climbing now, these groups of doves are coming into the water, but low and fast. So, again, why would that be? What is the difference? Is there a bird of prey somewhere around here, like a goshawk or a lanner falcon that they're aware of? And if so, well, how do they actually pick up on this? So, just one observation like that is saying, well, earlier, darker, they come in higher, warmer, they come in lower and faster. Who knows?
We've come across a herd of elephants. It's just settling down now. As we came in here, they were very upset. And we heard them screaming before we came through here. I don't know if they saw some lions, maybe. Although if they did, the lions must have flown here because I can't see their tracks anywhere. But they were very unsettled. And they're settling now. And I know this isn't the best elephant view we've ever had, but I just want to let them settle before I try and move the car again. They've all now hidden behind a thicket so impenetrable. I think they're going towards a sort of a clearing, so we can try and move around that way. Yeah, no, JT, it is amazing how an elephant can disappear in virtually plain sight. A bit skittish of driving off-road these days after my 2 days of bending the steering rod. I want to do it again. The trick is to be able to feel when you've hit something that's going to bend it and then stop and go back. Because it bends very quickly. Right, we're coming round into a nice little clearing here and hoping the elephants will be very relaxed. As opposed to just disappeared, gone. Can you see them, Morgan? They have literally just disappeared. Let me just poke my head through here. All right, let's go to Nicky. Apparently he's got us a bird. I'll keep looking around here.
So we're just having a look here at a slender mongoose. Oh, before we get to the mongoose, there's a Gabar. It looks like a Gabar goshawk. Now, earlier on, this Gabar goshawk was chased by a slender mongoose that was trying to catch it. Well done, Owen, for getting another view on that. So if we spend some time there's a chance. I just saw, I had an earlier little glimpse of this bird of prey, but then there was a little mongoose that tried to catch it. So let's just give it some time. You can see, look at it looking down. So I think that mongoose is going to try another go to try and catch it. Oh, it flew. There's the mongoose, just underneath where that goshawk flew off. Just look at the mongoose going up. There he's going down again. So let's see. So the goshawk has gone up into another tree, but you can see it's looking down. Now so often with the birds, the slender mongoose, oh, it had to go off again. I think that mongoose is just quite keen for a nice breakfast this morning. Because he's basically climbed that tree again. So the tree that the goshawk was sitting on earlier, so halfway up of it, you might see, no, the one that it was sitting on earlier, I think it just jumped off. Now the goshawk has moved again to the next one, and I wonder if that little mongoose is going to get there again. So, Owen, if we go slightly more to the right where that goshawk is now. I know there's a lot happening, so it's very hard to try and focus on everything that's happening. But just slightly off to the right, that goshawk has gone and sat up into another tree. So let's just give it some time and see if that mongoose will have another go. So that was 3 attempts now to try and catch it. Of course, being a bird of prey, their eyesight is very, very good. And so every time it gets close, it will fly off. Now, often those mongooses, they'll go for, especially something like lapwings, that are often near the ground. Where these birds of prey, they normally perch on quite a thin branch. It's quite a mission for... See, it flew off. Let's just see where it might go off to. I just want to see if I can see that mongoose there on that tree again. Can't believe it. It was right there and it jumped off again. Oh, so here we've got another. So Owen's been doing a really good job trying to find that goshawk again, but there it is. So I can just imagine with this area, there's quite a few dead tree, or not dead trees. There's a few trees without any branches without any leaves that the goshawk is currently sitting on, and it might just be staring into these little channels in the grass, these game trails, to see if there's any potentially mice, maybe lizards, any possible small snakes, anything, insects that might move through that, and then be able to spot it and then fly down and catch it. Oh, there it goes off again. Butterfly, they are, I agree with you, they are very fast flyers. You can just imagine with being a bird of prey, often if something moves, there's not a lot of time from the tree in order to get to where that thing, or let's say it's a mouse moving in the grass, there's not a lot of time. So that bird really needs to make sure that whenever it moves as quickly and as a direct line as it possibly can in order to try and catch it. Or even imagine if early on in the morning, something like a reptile, because of the fact that they're not warm-blooded and they have to rely on their environment to heat them up, they might be quite slow in the morning. So that's also another reason why this one is particularly choosing the mornings in order to look for them as they move into the sun. think for now is we'll spend a bit more time here and just have a look and see what this goshawk might be up to.
WildEarth relies on support from viewers like you to carry on broadcasting our daily live shows. A small donation goes a long way in helping us on our mission to connect the world with nature. Please visit our support page to see how you can help and become part of the WildEarth family.
Welcome back, everyone. And after some driving through places that I don't think I've ever been to before, and with a lot of help from our tracking team, we've managed to find these two big male lions. Isn't this just gorgeous? Look at the mist behind them. If you look closely, you can even see it blowing past their faces. Oh, here comes a yawn. Oh, that was a very half-hearted yawn. Absolutely magnificent. Look at those two beautiful black and red manes. They look so peaceful in this mist. It's quite a I don't know, profound scene, if you will. It's the whole imagery gets conjured up of kings in England and on misty mornings in their castles, and that's exactly where these two male lions are. They're up on the top of a ridge. I'm sure you can see behind them how the mountainside drops off, and it does pretty much the same thing behind us. And they're perched up on top of this ridge. They will have spent the night patrolling their territory, roaring, and with these big mountains and these deep valleys, their roars, the sounds of their roars would have carried far into the distance, letting other male lions know that this territory is taken, that there's two big, strong male lions that protect this territory.
This lion must be sponsored by some hair care product.
So Marcel is just remarking that the male lion on the left's mane looks particularly lush. Look at that male lion on the right. Look how he's lifting his nose into the wind. Oh, he's going to get up. Ruby, you're saying that they are magnificent male lions. I completely agree, Ruby. And look at him now that he stood up. Look at how long that mane is. It comes all the way down the front of his chest and flows down his back in between his shoulder blades. Look at him dribbling a bit of urine there. Facing into the wind. Still urinating as he goes. At least he had the decency to stand up and move away from where he was lying to do that. So I wonder what scents are being carried on the wind that he's smelling. Perhaps the smell of food. Perhaps the smell of other lions. Moondust, you're asking which coalition of male lions these are. Moondust, this is the coalition that is dominant in the southern part of our reserve, and we call them the Bayala males, after the area into which they first came. The Bayala males. So, doesn't look like he's gone too far, just wanting maybe a bit of space, lying a bit further from his brother. So we'll have a look at the male now on the right, the one that's closer to us. And let's have a close look at his face. I'll use my binoculars and you can all use the zoom of the camera. Oh, where did you go, brother? Look at all the bits of debris in his mane. And look at how much darker this male's mane is than the first male. See where that first male had more red around his ears? See how this one's a bit darker? The red is more confined to closer to his face. There's a bit of red around his cheeks, above his ears. But if he looks back at us, which I'm hoping he's going to do. It looks like he's fighting off sleep. Looks like he's trying to fight to not fall back down again. Come on, big guy. So what I'm wanting to show all of you is his right eye. Striped horse, you're asking if male lions will stay together for life once they form a coalition. And striped horse, yes, they will. Unless there's something strange that happens, they will normally stay together for life. There are records of big coalitions of males, 4 or 5 males, where the coalition does break up a little bit, and kind of 2 will go off together and 3 will go off together, or 2 and 2, and there they might spend quite a bit of time apart. But no, these 2 will certainly stay together for life unless something very strange happens. And just because it's just that added support that being together affords them. You know, 2 males are much better able to defend a territory than 1. They need to rely on each other for that. If a group of, or if new males were to come and challenge them, if it were to be 1 male by himself, he could be even killed in a fight. Whereas if he's got his brother to back him up, they'll be that much better able to defend their territory. Oh, look at this mist coming through now. And he's going to lie down. There we go. And this is going to give us a chance now to look at this eye of his that I've been wanting to show you. So have a look at his right eye. And can you see how dark it is? And how swollen it is? There's a bit of a cut through it. And that's one of the kind of defining features of this particular male. Like we said, his mane is a little bit darker. And then he's got that cut through his eye. Christy, you say that it looks like that eye hurts. Christy, I think I agree with you. And I was actually just discussing now with Marcel, it's been quite a while that he's had that injury. And what kind of happened a couple of months ago is that these 2 male lions disappeared. We couldn't find them for days and days and days. And we suspected they were patrolling the western boundary of the reserve. And when they came back from that territorial patrol, we immediately noticed that this male's eye was pretty badly injured. At the time, it was so swollen and so bloodied, and there was, forgive the graphic image, but pus and stuff that filled up the eye. Some of us thought that that he might lose his eye, or might lose the use of it. But over time, kind of the recovering powers of lions just kind of showed themselves, and we've been able to see how the eye still looks pretty bad, and there still is a bit of discharge coming from it, but he seems to be able to use it fully. Now, the cause of that is almost invariably would have been a fight with another lion. It could have been his brother, it could have been another male lion that he met. We're gonna carry on enjoying our male lions in this beautiful mist of morning. In the meantime, though, let's go and see what Dylan's meerkats are up to.
So these little meerkats are just putting on such a beautiful display this morning. It's so relaxed. And we're just chatting about it. And someone asked a question earlier about how long it's taken for us to habituate these animals. And we took a bit of a gamble, Genre and myself, because this particular group wasn't one of our better groups, generally. And not because we hadn't worked on it. Like I said, we've been working on this group for a number of years, but just because you've had these individuals that have moved in and out, and some of them haven't been relaxed. So we kind of took a gamble on saying, well, okay, because the female was heavily pregnant, let's try to do a bit of work with this. And I'm really, really, really glad that we did, because where we were with them 2.5 weeks ago, is just a vastly different scenario to where we are today. So, we got some really good elephants moving up towards James, so head over that way and we'll be right back.
We too have got some elephants, yes. Well, I think we've got the only elephants at the moment. This is not the same group of elephants we had earlier. That group was very distressed about something or other, and they have departed. And so we found some more, quite luckily. Still no idea where those lions went, other than into the block where these elephants are. So maybe the elephants will do us a favour and find the elephant. No, the lion for us. It's an interesting one, Shah. I've never heard that before. I've never heard of elephants described as grey locusts before. No, I don't agree with that name. I think that there's a vast swathe of misconception around the effect that elephants have on an ecosystem, and I think that we have very little understanding as to exactly how many elephants is appropriate, what a carrying capacity for elephants is. You know, when an elephant pushes over a tree and seems to, or when a herd of elephants comes through an area and seems to decimate it, you know, what does that actually mean? Yes, it doesn't look nice when you see a big tree pushed over, but surely that's how it's always been. And it's only in the last 200 years or so that we've suddenly been noticing it and saying, oh, look, the elephants are damaging the place. So, no, I would disagree strongly that elephants are big grey locusts. I'm assuming that's what the illusion is. There's no question that in a fenced reserve where the elephants cannot go anywhere else, you must manage their population carefully, because then they can destroy a place, but so will anything left to, any population left to grow out of hand. My favourite thing is that, I've spoken to a lot of supposedly very clued up people around the Sabi sand area, and they'll bemoan the fact that elephants are pushing over trees. But at the same time, there is a disconnect in their understanding of the provision of artificial water and the presence of elephants. So, the concentration in the Sabi sands of elephants during the driest part of the year is very high. And that's because there's artificial water everywhere. It's not the elephant's fault that that's been put there. So, in terms of locust effect on a landscape, I don't think the elephants have it anything like as severely as a human being does. Across the road now, very carefully walking, just having a quick look at us. Grey Banshee has obviously been on the source this morning, evening where she or he is, wondering what it would be like if elephants were to fly like locusts. Yes, now that would be scary, Grey Banshee. I think that would be very frightening to see great swarms of elephants coming towards you. I would certainly be afraid. I'm quite pleased this herd is going into the block here, because if they do come across the lions, they'll flush them out. Shenzia, as far as I'm aware, and I know I've learnt this before and subsequently forgot it, pachyderm means wrinkled skin. And so that's all it is. Derm, obviously, is skin. Pachy, I think, means wrinkled. And so wrinkly skin. is why they're called pachyderms. You can also refer to as a rhino as a pachyderm, although they are not related animals, well, not closely. That elephant discussion is such an interesting one that is so, it's a real, I suppose, if I was a Martian biologist / psychologist and I was studying human behavior, the elephant discussion would be a really good one to use as an example of how human beings confuse things, allow emotions to get in the way of what they're thinking about, allow not only just emotions, but allow their completely different goals and different perspectives on life to cloud the science and to, in fact, create science that isn't really science around it. I mean, it's amazing. You know, everybody's got a different perspective on elephants. Landowners want elephants for tourists, but they don't want their trees to be pushed over. Local people in places like Botswana or Kenya are very happy to tolerate elephants as long as they don't destroy their crops and that sort of thing. So they have a totally different relationship with elephants. And everybody's relationship colors how they interpret seeing the elephants and how they interpret elephant presence and how they interpret elephant numbers. And so very seldom is there any actual science brought to bear on the question of, are there too many elephants? Because it's almost impossible to scientifically say whether there are or aren't in a place like this. That's a tiny little thing. Oh, hello, little one. You're very brave to walk in front of your mum there. Giving a little shove. Come on, dear, let's keep going. And that's sweet. Oh, nearly got a poop on the head. Somebody got an amazing photograph of that the other day. A poop actually landing on the calf's head. So cute. I think that one of the newest and most adorable additions to these WildEarth broadcasts have been those meerkats.
So that one that we've got in frame now that Jandro's got there, it's very, very, very interesting because you can actually see there's marks on his neck. Now, for the previous 2 weeks, we haven't seen that at all. And yesterday, for the first time, we noticed that. And that's actually very distinctive. So he was definitely in some kind of altercation, whether it was maybe out in the field that something caught him and he managed to get away, or fighting with another meerkat. Who knows? But yesterday was the first time that we'd actually noticed that injury on his neck. Nothing to worry about. They heal incredibly quickly. These animals are super tough, super resilient. But it was just interesting to note that. And then, you know, and I don't know if it's got any bearing on it whatsoever, the fact that we noticed that yesterday for the first time, and yesterday was the first time in weeks that they'd come out so much later than usual. So anyway, just, you know, I don't want to draw any kind of weird conclusions or anything, but it's just, you know, you wonder if there's any link between seeing those injuries on his neck, which are not life-threatening or serious in any way, but seeing those injuries on a neck and then relating it to coming up a whole lot later. But you'll be fine, buddy. You'll be fine. But you can see that very clearly, eh? We've actually had excuse me, we've actually had puff adders bite meerkats before, and meerkats surviving puff adder bite. So those of you who may be more familiar with vipers, it's kind of the same kind of snake, or like rattlesnakes in the United States. So to get bitten by one of them, you're a little animal this size, and to get bitten by a viper, what we call a puff adder, it's pretty impressive to survive it if you're that kind of size. You're on the alpha there, Genre. It's so good. This is one. Megan says they are tough little guys, and they really, really are. But again, that's the thing, out in these environments, anywhere in the wild, life happens, eh? And, if you're compromised in any way, that can really be a life-threatening thing for you. So often they've got this innate resilience to injuries, that kind of thing, and that. So, and the ability to recover very quickly.
So as we were driving along the river, now remember we said we'll try and look out for leopard, but of course any small thing we can see as we go along. So earlier on we saw some slender mongoose, but now we've been very lucky to see some dwarf mongoose right here. So just notice, often with dwarf mongoose there's quite a few of them together. So it looks like there's an old termite mound with a couple of holes in it, and that's where they're slowly emerging from. Like the meerkats earlier from Tswalu, that took a bit of time before they started heading out into the sun. I think these ones as well. It's taken them a bit of a while to wake up, but now enjoying the early morning sun. Mitchell, that's a very good question. Like, according to my knowledge, they are within the same family structure. Like if you had to look on the broad terms, they are very similar in their behavior. They are very similar in also if you had to link it back. But what I'll try and do as well is I would like to go and research a little bit more about it. Just to go, because I mean, with us, we don't really, and all my guiding career, I've never been guiding in an area where we do find a lot of meerkats. So I would love to go and read up a little bit more about it, and hopefully by this afternoon I'll be able to share. But according to my knowledge, if you look further down the line, they are related in terms of, as we mentioned, some of the behaviors. You'll see sometimes with the mongoose, whenever they do mark their territory, they'll sometimes wipe their bum over something, same that meerkats would also do, especially if they do mark their territory. But I'll try and figure out a little bit more about it, do some reading, and then hopefully by this afternoon I'll be able to give some more information on that. But you can see very social. Look at how all of them just grooming each other. I can just imagine also with them, so early on in the morning, whenever they do come out, it's probably just re-establishing that family bond, asking everyone, how did you sleep? Now, I slept very well, and now from here on, they'll probably adventure off for the day. And I think for them also, they won't venture too far away from their hole, because as soon as there's any danger, of course, they'll run into quite a dense area, or immediately back into that hole where you can see them moving around. But you'll even notice, with some of the birds, like the yellow-bill hornbills, and some of the other drongos and starlings might even be near some of the trees here. So as soon as they move and they flush their insects, they'll go and catch them. Often it's believed that the yellow-bill hornbill would actually come to a spot like this if they know there's some dwarf mongoose, and actually wake them up, call the whole time until they eventually wake up and then start foraging. See, just off to the right of where you are now, and you'll notice there's quite a few of them, like right there in the middle of the screen, how they're playing with one another. Elizabeth, they are very, very cute. The way that they groom and the way that they also have a little bit of a tussle. I can just see my brother and I on the two on the left, if I had to compare it against a family where everyone gets up in a nice woolly manner, but of course you always have those two on the side that wants to play. Sometimes it does get a little bit rough. You'll see with them sometimes playing like this is when the one gets too rough and then the other one would immediately like to say, hey, just wait, you're hurting me at the moment. So often a little squeal that you might hear. But I think for now they are still playing very gently with one another.
Welcome back, everyone. The two male lions are still sleeping pretty much in the same position as where they were when you left us. And we've just been having a closer look at this male lion's eye. Now, I said that there was still a bit of gross, icky discharge coming through in that surgery that he had. But like I said, the recovery powers of these animals are something to be behold, and it appears that he's able to use it pretty normally, so nothing to be too worried about. But also now, just with him lying like this and facing towards us, have a look at his ear, just above that scarred eye, and have a look on the right-hand side of his ear. Can you see there's that round, grey, shiny thing? It looks like a little round pebble or round stone. And that is a very fat, very full tick that is contentedly sucking away at the blood of his ears. Ugh. And of course, on his ear, just imagine how thin the skin must be, lots of blood vessels there, a perfect spot for a little tick to attach and get a meal. Shenzi, you're asking if the hunting capabilities of this coalition of males will be limited because there are only two as opposed to being five. Shenzi, I suppose that in terms of the strength that they have, it will be... Oh, look at that. I think it's getting a little bit chilly here with this cold wind blowing over him. Just making his body a bit smaller, trying to minimize his surface area against the wind. Shenzi, to come back to your question, I think that in terms of tackling like big animals, like maybe buffalo or giraffe, they would potentially be less effective. As we said, lush those manes are, they are in super good condition. In addition to that, these two male lions, because of the size of their territory, they encompass two different, or their territory encompasses two different prides of lions. And so because of that, they're able to move between the two different prides of lionesses and kind of take advantage of the hunting efforts of the two prides of lionesses. So they could be with one pride for a little while, and maybe while they're with them, those lionesses kill something like a zebra. They'll then be able to feed on the carcass, and then they might then move to the next pride of lionesses, who might also then be hunting, and they might kill something, and then they can feed there as well. So yeah, it doesn't impact them too greatly, Shenzi. just talking about how lush that mane is. Look at the wind every now and then, how it blows the ends of his mane. Just makes them kind of dance a little bit in the wind, in the mist. It's going to be interesting to see how long he lies out here in the open with this lovely cool breeze blowing over him before it gets a little bit too chilly. Oh! Got a bit of a fright from that vehicle passing him. Oh, look at that light coming through now. There's a bit of sunlight that's managed to break through the mist, break through the clouds. Apologies for the noise of the other vehicle, everybody, but of course there are a couple of other game drives out and around this morning. And really look how his eyes are starting to close again. It was but a minor disturbance to his slumber. So look at now how he's changed his position. So he could have lain down again on his side if he wanted. More likely to get cold. Also, that's where his organs are, of course. So he'll be more likely to get cold by facing his belly into the wind and now rolling onto his tummy and curling up a little bit. Look at how he's a bit like a cat. He's almost curled his body around. Nice and huddled up. Look at all the debris in his mane. Bits of dried grass, and have a look on the right hand side. There's even a little clod of dirt with some roots in it. A lot of you remarking about how attractive his mane is, and I could not agree more with you. I mean, one of my personal favorite animals to spend time with is a male lion, and this male lion, or both of these two males, their manes are absolutely magnificent. And it comes from, like we've been talking about, their health. So having two different prides of lionesses they can move between means more food for them. And even just in terms of their stress levels. Now, while there are other male lions in this area, or on our reserve, it is seldom that these two big males will have their territory challenged. And so for that reason, they don't have as much stress as a male, say for example in the greater Kruger area, where he's going to have constant pressure on him from all around. And so because of that limited pressure, it helps the manes to grow thick and lush and long. Not so much stress in their lives. Although we've all wondered, none of us have actually seen it, but the other coalition of males that lives in the far north of the reserve, those males have come down into the territory of these two males, and vice versa. These males have been up into the territory of the two males in the north. And so we're all awaiting the day where the two forces collide. And it will be interesting to see what transpires, because both coalitions are very impressive male lions, and I think it would be quite interesting to see what the outcome would be. So from our healthy-looking male lion, let's go have a look at some healthy-looking impala with Nikki at Ngala.
So just past the band of mongoose, we were surprised by a herd of impala in the middle of the road. Now, just have a look with the sun. So the sun is basically between, the impala is between us and the sun, but notice the different colors that you can see. You'll also see it looks like there's this little shine on the back of the impala. And now and again you might see them as they are flicking their tail for the flies. You might notice quite a lot of white under the tail. And often with antelope, especially like impala, that occur more in open areas, or a combination of these open areas as well as the dense areas, you'll find that the stripes, although the patterns on their body are very unique, it's almost like these horizontal stripes, which blends in very well to this type of environment. You can imagine your first layer would be grass, your second scrubs, and then of course the trees, the darkish colors, especially towards the crown of the trees, blends in very well with impala, especially if they do move into some thickets, like this zebra that we saw a bit earlier. But I think let's refocus back onto them now. For us, I think impala sometimes are very easily overlooked antelope, because there's just so many of them in some areas. But if you do take the time just to observe them for quite a bit, they are very, very special and also very beautiful animals to watch. I mean, look at this male here. So you can imagine all those females is basically he's in charge of all of them, making sure that they're safe, keeping them all together. And you'll notice as soon as one of them just starts moving off a little bit, he'll move them back. And if there's any young male, like the one moving at the back, so you see all the females, they don't have horns, but the males do. So as soon as that young male gets too close to the females, he'll just move a bit closer. And if that young male moves off, he knows he's not a threat, so he'll carry on eating. But with a herd like this, it's very rare to find all of them with their heads down at the same time. To me, it does look like they have reflectors on their back, but I just think it's probably a bit of oil on their skin, but also it's just how beautiful and how smooth that coat is, and of course how the light catches that. But notice, even like as we said, so some of them will have their heads down, and then others will pick up their heads just to scan, make sure that everything is safe. You can imagine with all the eyes and the ears, how much safer they would be if they had to go, in comparison to if they had to be by themselves. And often that's what the young males do have to face, is whenever they are kicked away from a herd like this and they have to be all by themselves, it makes it quite difficult for them, unless they can join up, of course, with other male impala, or possibly be closer to something like a wildebeest or even a zebra or giraffe, any other animal that could help spot. But for now, this is just really, really beautiful to watch.
So what's really interesting, all 6 meerkats were out of these burrows. There's one popping up right in front of Jean-Dre now, yeah? But all 6 of them were out, super relaxed, and then they went down. And then the one in the furthest distance there, that other one that's still up there, I'm guessing it's probably going to be the babysitter for the day. That was the only one still standing outside. So all 6 were up, then 5 of them went down, that one remained. But I'm just wondering, the plot thickens. I'll just excuse myself up front, because if those pups do come out, there may be some expletives, but they'll be censored. But I'm going to probably be quite excited about it. So, yeah, I'll squeal on the inside. Someone said. Okay, there's something way down here. I can't see what it is, but I'm looking. And even a thing like a bat-head fox in the distance, they'll keep an eye on it. Thank you for all of those that will squeal along with me, because it's gonna be uber awesome, I promise you. Then you want to see next level cuteness. And just a reminder, why I'm walking up and down is just this constant reinforcement of of activity around here, they just become more and more relaxed, and you can see they're not even looking at me now, completely ignoring me. I don't blame them. I think this little one is definitely going to be the babysitter today.
Welcome back. Our male lion has rolled back over onto his side, having decided that either this is a more comfortable position to lie in, maybe that full tummy, maybe making him feel a bit uncomfortable with his whole body kind of on top of it. Look at that belly rising and falling. A nice deep sleep. And completely oblivious to, well, seemingly oblivious to the world around him. Helen, you're asking if oxpeckers would ever sit on a lion. Just talking about the tick that we saw on his ear a little bit earlier. Helen, I have not heard of any records of an oxpecker sitting on a lion. I've never seen it either myself, and I don't think that an oxpecker would try, Helen. Just because typically oxpeckers will sit on animals where they're not likely to get rebuffed for their efforts. So if an oxpecker sits on a zebra's back and picks off a tick, chances are the zebra's not going to react to it. If it goes and it starts to kind of root around in the zebra's ear or in its nostril, the zebra might kind of wave its head around as we would casually try to wave a fly away from our face. If it were to land on this lion though, Helen, this lion would definitely jump up and wiggle around and try and grab the oxpecker, try and catch it. Even though there's not much of a meal to be had in an oxpecker, if it did catch it, it would probably maybe eat it or maybe just kill it. So no, an oxpecker wouldn't sit on a lion. And so instead of that, this lion will rely on his own grooming to keep himself free of ticks. So he's got that super rough tongue of his, and then I've seen lions using their incisor teeth like tweezers to pull ticks off of their bodies in the places where they can reach. He'll also rely on his coalition partner. Like we said, two brothers together for life. They'll often kind of lick each other or rub faces together. They can often kind of help to keep each other clean and even free of parasites in some cases. Richard, you're asking if I think that lions get cravings for certain kinds of meat or certain prey species like humans do. Richard, it's a tough question to answer, and I don't think so. I think for lions, for them it's all about, meat is meat. Whatever they can get is what they're going to eat. For them it's all about survival, and I don't know how we would really test to see if lions preferred one meat over another. For them it's all just about getting as much food as they can whenever they can, to keep themselves fueled. And thus able to survive. So Richard, I don't think that they do crave certain things. What we did notice though is last year, Richard, there was quite a bad drought in the area, and many of the animals were getting pretty badly emaciated just due to a lack of grass and palatable vegetation. And things like warthogs especially, we noticed with the buffalo herds, they were getting pretty skinny and pretty emaciated, but warthogs were probably taking the worst, probably losing condition the most. And we noticed that lions, whereas they would often hunt warthogs, or even now in Phinda they hunt warthogs regularly, and then eat them seemingly with relish. During the dry times of last year, we noticed that the lions would still catch warthogs, but often wouldn't even eat them, just because of how skinny they were, and probably not the best nutrition to be had on those skinny bodies. And then I suppose this is just I suppose anthropomorphizing a little bit and just thinking out loud, or thinking how funny it would have been to think of these lions thinking, I wish we could get something better than these skinny scrawl warthogs to eat. But no, Rita, I don't think that there's a craving that these lions have for certain kinds of food. I have heard theories of, and I've told all of you this before on a previous drive, but I've spoken to some old Shangaan gentlemen in the Kruger, and they had a theory that lions preferred waterbuck meat in that area over other prey species, and their argument came from the fact that they said that in all their years of walking in the bush, of tracking, that whenever they came across lions feeding on things like buffalo or zebra or wildebeest, the lions, and if they were approached on foot by people, the lions would growl but then give way and they'd run away. He maintains, though, that every single time he saw a lion pride on a waterbuck carcass, he reckons that the lions would not give that carcass up. Now, of course, I don't think we can take that as scientific fact. This is just one man's experience, but it was interesting to hear his stories. Of course, people that get to spend that amount of time in the bush and living in pretty remote areas and maybe not getting exposure to, or not being given the opportunity to do research and conduct scientific research through universities or things like that, their observations often don't get noted. And sometimes there might be fact to be found in some of their observations. Look at his paw. Look at his paw, everybody. It looked like he was maybe having a dream. His paw was kind of jiggling.
This giraffe is not having a dream, I don't think, unless it's dreaming of the lions that I can't see. That's quite funny, having a little scratch to get the oxpeckers off. And possibly just an itch. Now, we saw this guy yesterday. He's the chap with the long, thin horns and the very calcified skull. Not a youngster. He's not about to drop dead of old age either, though. And now he's having some breakfast. Some Combritum herreroense. Yum. Now that sort of height would be very useful for the task of looking for lions. I'm relatively convinced that they are in the block where we were looking at the dung. Seems ages ago, but it was probably about an hour and a half ago. So we'll probably have to come back there this afternoon and have a look around. Very itchy. Okay, I think the same probably applies to quite a few animals. Let me just roll slowly back, forward. Can't decide where he's going, this giraffe. There we are. You know, if you don't have a particularly bendy body and a set of claws, it must be it must be very difficult to scratch yourself. So yes, I agree, especially on a giraffe's neck. Almost impossible to scratch. But if you think about any of the ungulates, actually, none of them are very flexible. And it's one of the reasons that something smaller than them can kill them. So a smaller predator. If you look at a female leopard like Tundi, she probably weighs around about 45 kilograms. And, you know, she can kill a fully grown adult impala ram, 70 kilograms, because once she's got him down on the ground, he's so inflexible that he cannot get his legs underneath him to push himself up and therefore, you know, make life difficult. And so you'll often see with big predator or smaller predators killing something bigger, you'll find them on top of their prey, holding the prey down so that the prey cannot get their feet back underneath them and boost themselves up to the ground. And so none of them are very flexible. The scratching thing is difficult. They're flexible in some ways, but not in all directions like a cat is. Well, Mike's had some success off at the base of the Drakensberg, so let's go over there.
Yes, so we have been successful. We've managed to find that skittish female, the one that I've been talking about that we know is staying in this area. And look how well camouflaged she is. She's just sitting in the shade, close to some logs, peering towards the waterhole of Leopard Dam. Now, we know that she's quite skittish, so I wouldn't expect that she's going to get up and roll around in front of us. But this is very important. She is starting to relax. You see how she's looking up and around. She hasn't been looking at us. So it seems as though she's starting to get comfortable with our presence. So this is fantastic. She had been trying to hunt this morning, so I heard. Lots of impalas were alarm calling and she was meandering all over. She seems to have settled down now, here close to the water, quite close to a drainage line where she might hide if she tries to hunt again. Oh, looks like she might get up. So this is good to see. Normally when we've seen her, she's immediately done a leopard crawl to get away from the vehicles. But now she seems to be starting to realize that the vehicles are not trying to do anything, not trying to disturb her. So she's just starting to walk around. Oh, this is fantastic. Beautiful light. Oh, gorgeous golden-eyed female. Okay, we're going to have to move the car because she's going behind us. She's going to disappear into a drainage line. Yeah. All right, she's trotting off into the drainage line now. She doesn't like the open areas. So what I'm going to do when we try and relocate her, I'm going to send you over to Phinda, to some sleepy lions.
Our male lion is still lying in exactly the same spot, and he hasn't had any more dreams. I don't know what his little dream was about, where his paw started to flutter like that and his mouth started to kind of jump up and down. His bottom jaw looked like he was trying to chew something. Perhaps he was imagining or having a dream that he was chasing something and then catching it. And just listening to the sighting that you've been having with Mike over at Pride Lands with that unrelaxed lioness, and talking about the importance of not putting pressure on her so that she doesn't get fearful of vehicles. It reminds me of a time when these two male lions were... Oh, he's going to roll over for us. Auntie's back. Maybe not. Oh. That looks very comfortable in the morning light. But yeah, so it just reminds me of a time when these male lions were quite new to the area, and also we were super sensitive with them, made sure we kept a good distance away from them so that they didn't feel threatened by the vehicles. And I remember the one evening we had spent the early part of the afternoon with a pride of lionesses, watching them trying to hunt some zebra, and they unfortunately were not successful. But in the process of us driving around following those lionesses, we must have at some stage driven through the urine of one of the lionesses. And she was quite young at the time. And a few days later, about a week or so after that, we actually saw her mating with one of these two males. But back to the story. So we must have driven through one of those lionesses' urine, perhaps the urine of that young lioness with which these males were mating with about a week later, because we came along and found these two male lions lying in much the same way as they're lying right now, fast asleep. And suddenly the wind changed direction, and it had been blowing from them to us like it is now, but it swung a bit and it started to blow from us towards them. And in a matter of seconds, one of the male lions was up on his feet, looking straight in our direction, and he started to walk towards us. And I mean, normally that's not too much of an issue, but the way that he was looking at the vehicle, you could tell that he was very interested in us. And we had a young child in the vehicle, about 9 years old, and he didn't like the look that this lion was giving our vehicle, understandably so. And so I started to move away from him. Now, bearing in mind, these lions were still at a time when we were being super sensitive around them and not wanting to get too close to them for fear of us spooking them. And the lion kept coming, kept following us, but not being aggressive, just being very inquisitive. And it was then that the tracker that I work with, whose name is John realized that the lion was looking at our tire, and we put two and two together. So we had driven through that lioness's urine at some stage, and there was obviously just the presence of pheromones indicating that she was starting to come into estrus, and he'd smelt that and had wanted to come and investigate to see if there was maybe an attractive lioness in the area. Alright, these male lions are probably going to keep on sleeping here in the cool of the misty morning, so I think we're going to leave them and start to make our way home. But let's go across to Tswalu and see what Dylan's Meerkats are up to.
Yep, so far no luck on the little pups coming out, but we'll get them, we'll just be patient and over time. But I just wanted to say, we found someone special for you again this morning. And this little guy, many of you know them, armored ground crickets. They are really at the end of their tether now with this winter that's set in properly. There's hardly any around. So this is probably one of the last ones. And he just really wants to say just goodbye to you all and that you must have an amazing day. He says it's been an incredible time having you all with them and him and his friends over the past couple of weeks. So from our side, Jandre and myself, and everyone here at Tswalu and all our colleagues, we just want to say, please stay safe. You must all have an amazing day. Go out into your gardens if you can, or wherever you are. Try see some cool things in nature. Try learn about things. And yeah, just stay safe and have an absolutely beautiful day. And we will see you again this afternoon.